Chapter 190. Kyra raised her head, her long hair fluttering without any wind, spreading out behind her like a disk. The death scythe in her hand made a slashing motion in the air. Immediately, a sparkling and translucent gray light unfolded in the air like a tear. The sky suddenly darkened, and then an incomparably gloomy killing intent enveloped the demon army like quicksilver. In the air, wherever the gray light passed, a wide fissure was opened. Within the black fissure, specks of starlight could be seen, and that biting cold killing intent came from within. Behind Kyra, a tall phantom appeared. The phantom's height was no less than 100 meters, and it also held a huge scythe in its hand. It looked like an enlarged version of Kyra, just that it was completely gray and illusory. Similarly, killing intent leaked out, but what fell on the Exorcist Mountain Pass was completely different. All the officers and soldiers on the Exorcist Mountain Pass felt a dense killing intent instantly fusing into their blood vessels, completely arousing the killing intent in their hearts. In their hearts, fighting seemed to have become the most sacred mission. If God obstructed them, they would kill God; if Buddha obstructed them, they would kill Buddha. Positive and negative slaughter boundary, one of Kyra's God descending technique skills. This already had nothing to do with her own cultivation, and was completely the formidable ability of the God descending technique. Of course, because Kyra's current cultivation was still far from enough, the positive and negative slaughter boundary's power couldn't cover a large area. However, for her current close combat form, she only needed to control the boundary to cover the Exorcist Mountain Pass. For enemies, the positive and negative slaughter boundary would greatly reduce their imposing manner due to the terrifying killing intent, and produce intense fear in their hearts, thereby substantially reducing their fighting strength. But for allies, it was an all-around increase in killing intent. The increase in killing intent could allow them to display 120% of their strength, and at the same time, they wouldn't be affected by anything else on the battlefield. This was the first time Kyra tried to use this boundary. She hadn't grasped it for a long time, and had never truly used it in battle, because she lacked confidence. If it was before she lost her memory, this situation absolutely wouldn't have occurred. Long Houchen's return not only brought Kyra happiness, but it also made her feel that she had someone to rely on. With peace of mind, her confidence naturally increased, and she was finally able to unleash the power of the Death God's Descent spell. Under the influence of the positive and negative slaughter boundary, the morale of the soldiers of the Exorcist Mountain Pass surged, and the demons were completely routed from the top of the city wall. In their eyes, the 6 demon god pillars in the distance seemed to only have the effect of illumination. It wasn't enough to affect the morale at all. Affected by the positive and negative slaughter barrier, the demons' attacks suddenly slowed down, and their reactions became sluggish. The lower one's cultivation, the greater the effect of the barrier. The might of a god's favored who wielded a god's artifact that was compatible with him was naturally not something that an expert of the same level could compare to. Just Kyra's God's Descent spell alone was enough to raise the morale of their side, and on the other side, Long Houchen still hadn't made a move. Long Houchen's Ling Gang didn't stop, and the Star King's star domain was still continuing. As long as the light elements were absorbed, they would be quickly supplied to Long Houchen. In just a short while, Long Houchen's Ling Gang in the Sun Moon Divine Snail's shield had already surpassed the level of 100,000 spiritual energy points. Moreover, the speed of his infusion didn't show the slightest sign of slowing down. It couldn't be denied that Long Houchen's current comprehensive strength was very high. As a god's favored, after using the divine rain, his body's fusion with the light attribute had become even closer. Therefore, any light element that came to him would produce an incomparable feeling of intimacy. The adamantine base battle armor was a powerful piece of epic equipment, and its auxiliary effect was already extremely strong. Moreover, there was the Star King's star domain, which was comparable to a forbidden spell. For a time, although Long Houchen's own cultivation base wouldn't increase to a very strong level, there would be a qualitative leap in terms of sustained combat power. And he directly converted this sustained combat power into the Ling Gang and provided all of it to his Sun Moon Divine Snail Shield. It had been a long time since he had obtained the Sun Moon Divine Snail Shield. Long Houchen could feel that every time he used it, his compatibility with it would increase. As this feeling became more and more obvious, he felt that he was getting closer to being able to truly control the Sun Moon Divine Snail Shield. At this time, although he still hadn't activated the Sun Moon Divine Snail Shield, he could faintly feel that the Sun Moon Divine Snail Shield was accumulating power, as if it could explode at any time. And this explosion required him to continuously provide the Ling Gang with power. Long Houchen's gaze was fixed on the distant horizon, at the rising sun. Dawn was about to pass, and the sun was about to shine on the earth. Would it be far before the Sun Moon Divine Snail Shield could release its true brilliance? In fact, Long Houchen's judgment of the Sun Moon Divine Snail Shield's ability was correct. The incantation left behind by Sun Moon Divine Snail did indeed tell him that if he wanted the Sun Moon Divine Snail Shield to release its greatest power, he needed to do so at dusk or dawn, when the sun and moon alternated. But Long Houchen's current cultivation base was still too far away from the ultimate power of activating the Sun Moon Divine Snail Shield. Therefore, no matter how hard he tried, no matter how much the Star King helped him, during the period when the sun and moon alternated, he still couldn't activate the Sun Moon Divine Snail Shield. The 6 great demon gods were all floating in the air, each bathing in their demon god pillar. Emotion demon god Sidi coldly stared at the distant Exorcist mountain pass. Although her expression didn't change, she was secretly shocked in her heart. Kai-Er's powerful killing intent made her feel a faint sense of panic. With her cultivation base, she could naturally see that this was the god's descent technique, which drew upon the power of God to achieve such power. But, before today, such a scene had never appeared in the Exorcist mountain pass. Burn, is that the human you and Enluo went to assassinate? Sidi pointed at Kai-Er in the distance and asked the concealing demon god beside her. Burn nodded and said, "Yes, it's her. But how did her strength change? She seems to have become stronger." Sidi coldly snorted. "That's not her strength, she borrowed the power of God. God's favored one. It seems that she is very likely the human girl that His Highness the Crown Prince mentioned. I let her escape at that time, so she was in the Assassin Temple." Burns said in a deep voice, "The one on the other side is the human knight who suddenly arrived that day and blocked Enluo's return, as well as my attack. I think he is even more dangerous. If not for him, Enluo would not have died. What does he want to do?" Sidi slightly narrowed her eyes. "No matter what he wants to do, he must die today. Enluo and Tai-Er need to be buried with human blood and corpses. That day, he was the one who used the forbidden spell. But don't you think it's a little strange? This human's cultivation base doesn't seem to have reached the 9th stage, which is 100,000 spiritual energy. How did he use the forbidden spell?" Burns said, "It might be some special equipment of the humans. He is wearing the fine gold foundation armor of Knights Templars, which seems to have a great amplification effect. Moreover, the shield he used to block my attack that day is also very strong. If not for that shield, it would be impossible for him to block so many of my attacks." Sidi coldly said, "These humans think that they are the only ones who can use forbidden spells. Do they think that we can't? The few of you, protect me. I want to show the humans the true power of us demon gods." As she spoke, Sidi's body slowly floated up, and the other 5 demon gods quickly gathered around her. The 6 demon god pillars formed a shape that looked like a plum blossom. The 5 demon gods were on the outside, and the emotion demon god Sidi was in the center. Sidi slowly raised her hands towards the sky, and the demon god pillar she was on suddenly exploded with a blinding pink light. The light from the demon god pillar shot into the sky. The dense spiritual energy mixed with the surging pink light caused the sky on the side of the demons to become the same color. Seeing this pink light immediately gave people a sweet and sticky feeling, as if there was something scratching in their hearts. That kind of itching feeling was extremely uncomfortable. Seedy was wearing a pink dress, and with her pink hair and eyes, as well as her fiery figure, she was filled with endless temptation. She began to chant a spell in a low voice, and circles of pink light began to spread from her body. It was now clear how powerful she was, as the 12th of the 72 demon god pillars of the demons. She had only just begun to chant, but the power of the forbidden spell was already showing. The pink light emitted from her body gradually condensed into a huge human figure in the air. This figure was 10 times bigger than the Grim Reaper figure behind Kai. As the pink light grew stronger, the figure became clearer and clearer. Surprisingly, this figure was the emotion demon god herself. It was Seedy, who had been magnified many times. All of her charm was revealed in this huge light, and it was becoming stronger and stronger. Even the light from the 6 demon god pillars dimmed because of this light. Seeing this silhouette, even under the stimulation of Kai-Er's front and back slaughter barrier, the human warriors couldn't help but stare blankly. This silhouette was really too big, and it was impossible not to look at it. The emotion demon god Seedy's beauty was filled with endless temptation, and it gave people endless imagination. She also had the perfect figure that every man dreamed of. The pathetically thin pink dress swayed gently in the wind. As her figure became clearer and clearer, the breathing of the human warriors became faster and faster. The most primitive desires of humans were stirring, and the weapons in their hands naturally began to slow down. The demons, who had been completely suppressed, suddenly erupted again. The battle on top of the city wall became even more intense. Sheng Lingxin, who had been commanding calmly, saw the huge light in the distance, and his expression changed. He said hoarsely, "It's the emotion demon god Seedy. She's going to cast a forbidden spell." Lan Yinyu was beside her husband. "What kind of forbidden spell is this? Have you seen it before?" Sheng Lingxin said in a deep voice, "Seedy's nickname is the emotion demon god. Among the demons, she is said to be in charge of lust. This forbidden spell of hers may not have any direct attack power, but it is more terrifying than those forbidden spells that attack directly. It can stimulate our most primitive desires. Even with my cultivation, I can feel my whole body heating up, let alone the warriors." Lan Yinyu said anxiously, "What should we do? Is there any way to interrupt her?" Sheng Lingxin said with a bitter smile, "Don't you see that the other 5 demon gods are surrounding her? How can we interrupt the power of the 6 demon god pillars gathered together? We can only rely on grandfather and the others." Lan Yinyu frowned. "Can we not look at her?" Sheng Lingxin shook his head and said, "It's useless. This forbidden spell is just the beginning. With Seedy's cultivation, if the forbidden spell she uses is only to not look at it, then how can she still be ranked 12th among the demons?" Lan Yinyu said doubtfully, "But why don't I feel anything?" Sheng Lingxin said, "Maybe it's because women are immune to her forbidden spell. But our warriors are all men." Speaking till here, his gaze subconsciously looked at Kai in the sky, and then looked at Long Haochen, who was still emitting a golden halo without any movement. Sheng Lingxin faintly felt that today's battle was related to the life and death of the Exorcist Mountain Pass. If something went wrong, perhaps the Exorcist Mountain Pass would forever disappear from this world. At that time, the Assassin Temple might not be able to survive. Right now, he was already thinking in his heart. If it really didn't work, then no matter what, he had to cover for Long Haochen to leave with his daughter. It would also be good to leave the last bloodline of the Assassin Temple. As a father, he would always have some selfishness. Long Haochen also saw the forbidden spell cast by emotion demon god Seedy, and was immediately startled. His feeling was different from Sheng Lingxin's. Being in the star domain, Long Haochen's powerful mental strength, coupled with the support of the light element from all rivers running into the sea, allowed his senses to reach an extremely shocking level. He discovered that Sidi's forbidden spell was like a projection. The entire forbidden spell's effect was a special spatial fluctuation that was only projected on the top of the Exorcist mountain pass. In other words, the demons below couldn't see it. Unless they attacked the top of the city wall, they wouldn't be affected by Sidi's forbidden spell. Moreover, Long Houchen could now be said to be a bystander, and a bystander could see things clearly. He discovered that the demon army that was pouncing towards the Exorcist mountain pass like a tide, after Sidi began to cast the forbidden spell, had instead slowed down. Only the dual-bladed demons were still pouncing with all their strength, while the other low and middle-level demons and high-level demons had clearly decreased their speed. Only because of the dual-bladed demons' unceasing attacks, the Exorcist mountain pass didn't feel too many changes in this aspect. The emotion demon god's forbidden spell was equally effective against the demons. Long Houchen immediately came to this conclusion. At this time, in the distance, a raging fire suddenly rose in the demon camp. At least a third of the demon camp was set ablaze, and the raging fire quickly rose. That's right, before the battle started, the Assassin Temple's temple master, Hero Xingyu, had already led the experts of the Assassin Temple to quietly leave the Exorcist mountain pass. After receiving Long Houchen's reminder, in addition to the huge results of last night's sneak attack, Xingyu was fully aware of what an assassin should do. These experts could only be said to be useless if they stayed on the top of the Exorcist mountain pass, and could only confront the other side. Moreover, they were assassins, not magicians, and didn't have the amplification of demon god pillars like the demon god. Therefore, even if they were ninth-step chivalrous assassins, they still couldn't cast a large area forbidden spell. Therefore, they could be used as a surprise attack outside the Exorcist mountain pass, and as an incomparably sharp divine weapon, it was far more effective than staying inside the Exorcist mountain pass to support the defense. This fire was ignited by them in the demon camp, and at the same time, it also completely burned the demon's granary. However, at this moment, Xing Yu's mood was incomparably solemn. He naturally saw Sidi start to cast a forbidden spell. However, from the angle of the demon army's rear, there was only an illusory pink light in the air, and he simply couldn't clearly see what ability Sidi was using. This was what Long Houchen observed. Sidi's true image of the forbidden spell was only projected on the top of the Exorcist mountain pass. In order to not affect the demon army, other than the Exorcist mountain pass, this forbidden spell wouldn't affect anyone else who saw it. Chivalrous, follow me. Hidden chivalrous assassins, attack the high-level demons from the rear. Xingyu gave the order without the slightest hesitation. He absolutely couldn't let Sidi's forbidden spell succeed, otherwise, the Exorcist mountain pass would be in danger. 11 distorted rays of light simultaneously disappeared in the air. One could faintly see that behind the 6 demon god pillars, the air suddenly became distorted, and an incomparably sharp killing intent directly locked onto the 6 demon gods in the air. Sidi acted as if she didn't notice these chivalrous assassins, still chanting her incantation. That illusory light began to become clearer and clearer, as if there really was such a huge version of her in this world. The top of the Exorcist mountain pass was also affected more and more, and the eyes of the soldiers were starting to turn somewhat red. Under the effect of Kai Er's positive and negative slaughter boundary, relying on the increased killing intent, she was able to suppress Sidi's forbidden spell to a certain extent. However, at this time, Kai who was in the air, was already covered in sweat. No matter how powerful a god's favored was, no matter how powerful the death god's scythe was, in the end, she was only an assassin of the 7th step. If Kai cultivation could reach the 9th step, relying on God's descent, her positive and negative slaughter boundary might even be able to suppress Sidi's forbidden spell. But now, she was completely unable to do so. Persisting with the boundary was just like trying to put out a burning cart of firewood with a cup of water. Moreover, once her boundary loosened, the soldiers of the Exorcist Mountain Pass would be affected even more. Kyra clenched her teeth, bitterly holding on. Because she had correctly judged the situation, she didn't dare to slack off. She had to persevere, she had to persevere. Her gaze unconsciously shifted to the other side of the Exorcist Mountain Pass, where Long Houchen was. She didn't know what Long Houchen was doing, but she had a kind of stubborn confidence in him. He would definitely be able to reverse the situation, he would definitely be able to. An ear-piercing sound suddenly erupted from behind the 6 demon god pillars, and in the air, a 300-meter-long crack appeared out of nowhere, fiercely cutting towards emotion demon god Sidi. It was precisely the 11 chivalrous men who had made their move. This attack was their joint attack, with only one goal: to stop Sidi from continuing with her incantation. Concealing demon god Burn's face revealed a trace of disdain. Aside from Sidi's demon god pillar, the other 5 demon god pillars suddenly changed directions, forming a horizontal line, blocking behind Sidi. Boom! A terrifying explosion resounded in the air, and the huge crack suddenly shattered into countless tiny spatial cracks, scattering in all directions. 11 figures simultaneously bounced back, each flying several hundred meters before stabilizing their bodies. The 5 demon god pillars were like 5 indestructible Vajras, forcibly blocking the sudden attack of the 11 heroes. Why did the Temple League cherish Long Houchen, who was able to destroy the demon god pillars so much? It was because for more than 6,000 years, humans had never been able to find a way to destroy the demon god pillars. With the demon god pillars, human experts had already suffered countless losses. When the demon god demons used the demon god pillars, the more demon god pillars there were, the more terrifying the might of the demon god pillars. With their current all-out defense, using the 5 demon god pillars to protect Sidi, the 11 Type 9 heroic assassins were helpless against them. Temple Master, what should we do? One of the heroes who had used too much strength earlier wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and asked Xing Yu. At this moment, Xing Yu's eyes were a little bloodshot. He knew that in this situation, Sidi's forbidden spell could no longer be stopped. They could not do it at all. This was also the situation that he did not want to see. If it was a top expert from the Magic Temple, perhaps they could use the forbidden spell against Sidi. However, among the 6 temples, there were 2 top experts from 2 temples that did not have the ability to use forbidden spells. They were the Assassin Temple and the Warrior Temple. In terms of individual combat, they were stronger. Their Ling Gang's power far surpassed that of the Magic Temple, the Soul Temple, and the Temple of the Priests. However, their Ling Gang could not break through the demon god pillar's blockade. Xing Yu's breathing was obviously a little hurried. However, as the master of the Assassin Temple, he had already prepared for the worst. He took a deep look at the 6 demon god pillars in front of him, clenched his teeth, and gave an order that made his heart bleed. Kill them. Once they use the forbidden spell, we will go down and kill those high-level demons. I want to see if they die first, or if our people die first. This was already the last resort. Even if there was the slightest possibility, Xing Yu would not give such an order. As soon as he said this, the eyes of the other 10 heroes turned red. It was very difficult for Xing Yu to give such an order. His grandson, Sheng Lingxin, was commanding the battle at the Exorcist Mountain Pass, while his great-granddaughter was doing her best to resist the forbidden spell in the air. Once the forbidden spell of the emotion demon god was completed, they would be the first to bear the brunt. Kill! The 11 heroes burst into an earth-shaking roar at the same time. Under the shocked gazes of the other 5 demon gods, they were like 11 raging dragons, crazily sweeping towards the demon army below. The impact of 11 Tier 9 powerhouses on the demon army was not to be trifled with. Although assassins did not specialize in large-scale attacks, their attack power within a certain range was far beyond that of a magician, Wherever the 11 heroes passed, the demons were thrown into disarray. Even the experts of the 7th and 8th grade demons could not stop them for even a moment. For a moment, the high-level demons at the rear of the demon army fell into chaos. This time, it was not a sneak attack, but an open attack. The speed of the massacre would only be faster. The faces of the demon gods of the demons immediately turned ugly. The reason why the 9th grade powerhouses of both sides did not easily participate in the battle was to prevent both sides from truly suffering. The destructive power of the 9th grade powerhouses was too strong. Once they joined the battle against low-level opponents, it would definitely result in a bloody massacre. In the end, both sides would definitely suffer. The Exorcist Mountain Pass could not withstand the powerful forbidden spell of the emotion demon god. Similarly, the demons also could not withstand the crazy attacks of so many 9th grade powerhouses. Xing Yu had just landed on the ground when the pair of orange-red short swords in his hands, shining with an epic grade radiance, were already swung horizontally. With him as the center, the orange-red radiance spread out in a fan shape, almost instantly shredding the bodies of dozens of high-level demons. In the next instant, his body was already 100 meters away. His whole body spun rapidly like a top. No one saw clearly how he rushed into the demons' camp, but this series of spins had already taken the lives of hundreds of demons. Those ordinary 4th grade and 5th grade demons did not even have the slightest possibility of resisting in front of the epic grade radiance. The same thing happened at 11 different locations at the same time. The destructive power was far greater than the sneak attack from last night. Emotion demon god Sidi's expression also turned ugly. She still continued her incantation. At this time, she had already reached the point where she had no choice but to release the arrow on the bowstring. She was already halfway through her forbidden spell. If she stopped now, then everything that she had done before would be in vain. Moreover, she still could not let the other 5 demon gods take action. Otherwise, if a powerful 9th grade assassin was hiding nearby and interrupted her forbidden spell, it would be a crushing defeat. The emotion demon god had to complete her forbidden spell. Only by ruthlessly dealing a fatal blow to the Exorcist Mountain Pass, then dealing with the 9th grade assassins below was the best method. But at that time, it was hard to say how many high-level demons would be left. At this time, among the 6 demon gods, there was still a clear-headed one. Although winged ox mad demon Saigong had the lowest cultivation among the 6 demon gods, he had, after all, confronted the Exorcist Mountain Pass here for a long time. He had a very clear understanding of the strength of the Assassin Temple. Seeing that the situation below was already in a mess and even somewhat out of control, he immediately let out a wild roar and gave an order to the demons. When he gave the order, the other demon gods felt as if they had suddenly come to a realization and hurriedly gave the order. Saigong's order was very simple. Full retreat. Full retreat from all directions. Assassins were unable to launch large-scale attacks. This was their biggest weakness. With so many demon army, even if they killed them, they would not be able to kill them all. After all, the number of these expert assassins was still limited. They could not take care of all directions. And now, emotion demon god Sidi's forbidden spell was clearly the most fatal blow to the humans. Whether or not the demon army attacked, the forbidden spell's power would not be affected. Therefore, although ordering the demon army to retreat would cause their morale to plummet, it was the best way to reduce the losses. However, the thoughts of these demon gods were just idealistic. The demons had an army of hundreds of thousands, so how could they retreat so easily? The demons on the periphery could still retreat after hearing the order, but the demons in the core positions would not be able to retreat so easily. For a moment, the demon army became even more chaotic, and the dual-bladed demon's attack also began to disperse because of the demon god's orders. For a moment, the Exorcist Mountain Pass was in complete chaos. Among the demons, whether it was the air force or the ground forces, they seemed to have completely surpassed the demon god's control. In addition, the 11 heroic assassins and even more heroic assassins had penetrated deep into the enemy's rank. In this chaotic situation, their killing power increased even more. The situation at the top of the Exorcist Mountain Pass was not any better than the demons. The dual-bladed demons' attack had retreated, but the pressure on the soldiers of the Exorcist Mountain Pass had not decreased in the slightest. In their eyes, the huge female figure in the distance had already become completely real, and Sidi's forbidden spell was also nearing completion. In the sky, her face, which had been magnified countless times, revealed a trace of a smile. The gentle pink radiance caused the top of the Exorcist Mountain Pass to be filled with an ambiguous pink color. Under the cover of this pink color, all the soldiers of the Exorcist Mountain Pass were flushed red to their ears. Some of them were already unable to control themselves and started to tear off their clothes and armor. The temptation of demon god Sidi was too strong. Suddenly, a huge pink radiance soared into the sky. The huge figure in the distance seemed to have been bestowed with vitality and moved. The forbidden spell was completed. Sidi's figure slowly took a step in the air, her buttocks and breasts lightly moved. Immediately, moans resounded from the top of the Exorcist Mountain Pass walls. The weapons in the hands of the soldiers couldn't help but fall to the ground. Even the effect of Kai-Er's positive and negative slaughter boundary had been reduced to an extremely low level. Puff! Kai-Er spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body was already on the verge of collapse. Her spiritual power had been completely overdrawn, and the positive and negative slaughter boundary could collapse at any time. And at this moment, even Xing Lingxin couldn't help her. As the chief of the military, under Sidi's forbidden spell, his body was also fiercely trembling, enduring the pain of a battle between heaven and man. Taking a step was only the beginning of Sidi's forbidden spell. Immediately after, that huge figure unexpectedly danced in the air. Every simple step, every movement of the body, every soul-stirring gaze, without exception, deeply affected the soldiers of the Exorcist Mountain Pass. Some of the soldiers had already fallen into a state of madness. Some of the soldiers with the lowest cultivation even threw themselves in Sidi's direction. Taking a step out of the top of the wall, they fell down. But even in the process of falling, the madness in their eyes didn't lessen in the slightest. Their emotions had already completely fallen into Sidi's forbidden spell, and they couldn't extricate themselves. The demon god of emotions, heavenly demon dance. It was a powerful illusion-type forbidden spell. This forbidden spell indeed didn't have any direct killing power, but its might was even more frightening. The range it covered was enormous. Moreover, even the experts with the same cultivation as Sidi would similarly be enchanted. Once this forbidden spell was formed, unless one's willpower and spiritual power were strong to a certain degree, they would definitely be enchanted. Even if it was a woman, after the forbidden spell was completed, they would similarly fall into desire and be unable to extricate themselves. The final result would be burning their bodies to death. The top of the Exorcist Mountain Pass was already in chaos, and the demon army similarly fell into chaos. This war had progressed to this point, and it seemed like there was no victor. In the end, it would be difficult for both sides to escape mutual destruction. And it was also at this time, an abrupt golden radiance suddenly shone in the sky. The moment this golden radiance shone, Kai-Er finally couldn't hold on any longer. The positive and negative slaughter boundary ended, and Kai-Er's body fell from the sky, falling down. A gentle golden light caught Kai-Er from below and supported her to land on top of the wall. It was Han Yu who made his move. At this time, Han Yu's state was also extremely bad. Both his eyes were scarlet red. After catching Kai-Er, he didn't even bother to ask her about her situation, and immediately threw her to the command platform of the second floor of the Exorcist Mountain Pass. The top of the wall was really too dangerous. There were tens of thousands of strong men burning with desire. If they let them see the weak Kai-Er, it was hard to imagine what would happen. Although Han Yu's cultivation was at the 7th step, His willpower was far stronger than the experts of the same level. His innate internal spiritual power of 80 was undoubtedly displayed at this time. He also saw that abrupt golden light, and it was also the only hope in his heart. He could only let himself believe that the master of that golden light could once again reverse the situation. Yes, the one who released that golden light was Long Houchen. The instant Sidi completed the forbidden spell, the distant horizon, the sun finally revealed its true appearance. Dawn ended and morning arrived. At this time, Long Houchen also felt the response of the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield. In the next moment, the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield burst out with incomparably resplendent radiance. Previously, Long Houchen had continuously poured in the Lingang, but was unable to activate the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield. However, this Lingang was actually stored in the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield. After the moment of sun and moon's splendor, Long Houchen once again controlled the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield, and the previously stored Lingang also burst out in full. At this moment, Long Houchen and the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield produced a kind of miraculous state of communication. He didn't need to carefully think about it, and he could feel the effect of the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield. He pressed down on the shield, and the intense seven-colored golden light suddenly shot toward Sidi's silhouette in midair. The emotion demon god Sidi's expression changed. She had been paying attention to Long Houchen's movements, and when she saw the sudden appearance of the divine artifact grade 7-colored golden light, she immediately reacted. A pink light shot out from the demon god pillar, and fiercely collided with the golden light of the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield. The heavenly demon's dancing silhouette in the sky suddenly became illusory, causing the crazy soldiers on the Exorcist Mountain Pass to pause for a moment. However, the next moment, the silhouette condensed again, and the dancing became more intense. It can't be stopped. Long Houchen's heart sank. He knew that his cultivation was too far away from Sidi's. He had the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield, and Sidi also had the Demon God Pillar. Although the Demon God Pillar was similar to a divine artifact, mainly manifested in the enhancement and protection of the Demon God, it was still not something he could resist with his current cultivation. Chapter 191. What to do? Light and shadow? Long Houchen's heart stirred, and he finally thought of a way. At this time, on the walls of the Exorcist Mountain Pass, the soldiers were almost naked from the waist up, but they were still desperately tearing at their bodies. Many of them were already drenched in blood, and the more powerful ones had even exposed their bones, but their emotions still continued to rise. Outside the Exorcist Mountain Pass, the assassins had already reached the peak of their slaughter. They were crazily slaughtering the demons, and it was unknown how many enemies had died in their hands. The seven-colored golden light suddenly converged. In the next moment, Long Houchen had already floated to the top of the Exorcist Mountain Pass. He looked straight at the distant heavenly demon Desire dance. For the soldiers of the Exorcist Mountain Pass, this incomparable temptation was unable to produce the slightest effect on Long Houchen. What emotion demon god Sidi saw was Long Houchen's golden eyes peeking out from the golden foundation battle armor's mask. They were clear without the slightest impurity, and they didn't produce any desire because of Sidi's heavenly demon Desire dance curse. Emotion demon god Sidi's heart shook again. Could it be that this human knight didn't have the slightest dark side in his heart? Moreover, desire was the most primitive impulse of humans, so why wasn't he affected in the slightest? In that instant, Sidi was shocked to discover that those clear golden eyes had already been deeply imprinted in her heart. Sidi was most proficient in illusion attacks, which could also be said to be spiritual magic. And as someone who used this kind of magic, she was most afraid of encountering an opponent who wouldn't be affected by her spiritual magic. Long Houchen's clear eyes had already shaken her devil heart. Immediately, the might of the heavenly demon Desire dance weakened a bit. Not good, Sidi cried out in her heart. She hurriedly calmed down and closed her eyes, no longer looking at Long Houchen. However, it was difficult to get rid of the heart demon. In the depths of her heart, that pair of golden eyes constantly flickered, and even if she closed her eyes, she couldn't erase it from her heart. If Sidi couldn't kill Long Houchen or conquer Long Houchen, then her cultivation would be greatly affected. Long Houchen did not know what was happening to the emotion demon god. He placed his left hand in front of his chest, and a 7-colored golden light instantly spread around him. It was the form of the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield. However, at this moment, the Sun-Moon Divine Snail's shield seemed to be expanding endlessly above the Exorcist Mountain Pass. The expansion of the 7-colored golden light immediately blocked the dancing shadow of the heavenly demon, as well as the pink light and aura. Wherever the 7-colored golden light passed, the crazed people on the walls of the Exorcist Mountain Pass would immediately slow down. It was just that the strong arousal was still there, so he couldn't completely wake up for a while. Because she was a woman, Lan Yinyu was less affected. With Long Houchen's Sun-Moon Divine Snail shield in front of her, she was the first to wake up. Raising the staff in her hand, she hurriedly chanted an incantation, and a cold rain fell from the sky, sprinkling down on the walls of the Exorcist Mountain Pass. Stimulated by the cold rain, the soldiers of the Exorcist Mountain Pass sped up their recovery from their arousal. At this time, the defensive power of the Sun-Moon Divine Snail shield had already been weakened to its lowest level. In order to block the emotion demon god's heavenly demon, Long Houchen did his best to expand the radiance of the Sun-Moon Divine Snail shield, which had been stimulated by the might of the divine tool. At this moment, the pressure he was under was similarly enormous. He didn't know if he could persevere until the other party's forbidden spell ended. The activation of the Sun-Moon Divine Snail shield this time was completely different from the last time. Last time in the Dragon Resisting Pass, the Sun-Moon Divine Snail shield had been corroded by the blood hatred of the two demon overlords. It had automatically drawn out Long Houchen's spiritual energy and temporarily released the might of the divine tool. But this time, it was Long Houchen himself, with the help of the Star King, who had stimulated the might of the Sun-Moon Divine Snail shield. Moreover, it had been compressed for a long period of time when the sun and moon alternated. While Long Houchen's strength continued to increase, the current Sun-Moon Divine Snail shield was equivalent to the compressed Lingang's explosive power. Therefore, its might was much stronger than when it was in the Dragon Resisting Pass, and Long Houchen could control it himself. From a distance, the top of the Exorcist Mountain Pass was completely shrouded in a layer of 7-colored golden light. The gentle golden light fluctuated in the air, blocking the heavenly demon's desire to dance. What was even more strange was that the 7-colored golden light unexpectedly produced a reflective effect like a mirror, so that the clear image of the heavenly demon's desire to dance was directly projected to the sky above the chaotic demon army below. This time, it didn't matter. The effect of the completed heavenly demon's desire to dance on demons was even greater than that of humans. After all, the intelligence of middle and low-level demons was very limited, while their instincts were more intense. For a moment, the demon army was completely covered in a layer of pink. The experts of the Assassin Temple, who were in a state of slaughter, were also stunned. They all happened to look at the top of the Exorcist Mountain Pass. The dazzling 7-colored golden light deeply shocked them. At the same time, they also saw the heavenly demon's desire to dance. Even with the cultivation of the experts of the Assassin Temple, when they saw this soul-stirring dance, they couldn't help but be immediately affected. However, their cultivation was profound, and they were old, so the speed at which their passion was ignited wouldn't be too fast. Xing Yu let out a whistle, and the group of experts of the Assassin Temple immediately flew to the side, even escaping into space. The danger at the top of the Exorcist Mountain Pass had been resolved, so they didn't need to risk their lives here. Being unaffected by the forbidden spell was the most important thing. No matter what kind of demons they were, the moment they were affected by the heavenly demon's desire to dance, they immediately began to go crazy. Among them, the ones affected the most were the demons who were cannon fodder, the dual-bladed demons. Wherever the heavenly demons' desire to dance passed, large swathes of dual-bladed demons would immediately explode and die. Severed limbs, flesh, and juices fluttered in the air, and a dense fishy smell frantically pervaded the battlefield. This was the might of the forbidden spell. Whatever influence the top of the Exorcist mountain pass had previously received, the demon army was now suffering double. For better or worse, humans had extremely high intelligence, and their self-control ability was also much stronger than the demons. In a short period of time, although the losses weren't small, it wasn't to the extent of completely losing control. But for the demons, the heavenly demons' desire to dance was too terrifying. This was also an important reason why the other demon gods didn't dare to face the emotion demon god Seti. Even the demon gods ranked higher than Seti weren't willing to deal with the emotion demon god. Without sufficient willpower, they were bound to fall into her love magic, unable to extricate themselves. The emotion demon god Seti couldn't help but stare blankly the instant her forbidden spell was reflected, because in her eyes, a huge glowing silhouette that looked exactly like her appeared in front of her. It wasn't just her, even the other 5 demon gods guarding her were stunned for a moment. In such a short period of time, the demon army below had already suffered astonishing losses. Not good, Seti growled, her hands quickly forming seals, using the fastest speed to remove her forbidden spell. She didn't know how long Houchen was able to reflect her forbidden spell, but the truth was in front of her. If this continued, at least half of the demon army would be buried under her forbidden spell. Long Houchen was bitterly maintaining the sun-moon divine snail shield, while the emotion demon god was also quickly removing the forbidden spell. But since forbidden spells were called forbidden spells, once they were cast, it wasn't easy to remove them. They needed time. Under the protection of the sun-moon divine snail shield and the stimulation of the cold rain, the soldiers on the walls of the Exorcist mountain pass gradually woke up. After the intense desire came extreme weakness. Many of the soldiers had too many wounds and died from blood loss because of their previous madness. But most of the soldiers were barely able to hold on. Even so, the soldiers on the walls of the Exorcist mountain pass were already less than 10%. Only the strongest could hold on until now. It had to be said that the brilliant Angel Knight regiment was largely preserved. It wasn't that they were more resistant to Seti's magic, but that they were wearing heavy knight armor. It was not an easy task to take off the armor. In their madness, it was even more impossible. Thus, under the protection of the armor, they received the least damage. There were very few casualties, but now most of them had lost the ability to fight. If the heavenly demon desire dance continued for a while longer, they wouldn't be able to escape the fate of being burned to death. At this moment, in the eyes of these brilliant Angel Knight regiment, Long Houchen, who was riding on the Star King, raised his left arm and emitted a 7-colored golden light, was simply like a savior. It was the Saint Knight Commander, their Saint Knight Commander. At this moment, the Saint Knight Commander was using his formidable strength to stop the enemy's forbidden spell. For a moment, every brilliant Angel Knight Commander's heart was filled with incomparable reverence. Even if they had to crawl, they reluctantly got up and gave Long Houchen a knight's salute. Kaer barely stood up with her mother's support. Looking at the dazzling 7-colored golden light outside the walls, she couldn't help but shed tears. He didn't disappoint her trust and expectations. In the end, he still managed to turn the tide. He helped the assassin temple withstand the most fatal attack. Perhaps the refraction of the forbidden spell was a coincidence, but who could say that it wasn't the will of heaven brought by the Child of Light? Who else could create such a coincidence? Puff! The golden light shattered, and the 7-colored radiance turned into specks of light that dissipated in the air. From the moment Long Houchen released the radiance of the sun-moon divine snail shield that enveloped the walls of the Exorcist mountain pass, to the moment the radiance dissipated and him and the Star King fell, only a dozen seconds had passed. But it was these dozen seconds that saved the entire Exorcist Mountain Pass. In the distance, the heavenly demon's desire for dance was already slowly dissipating. Because she had forcefully interrupted her forbidden spell, the demon god of emotion Sidi had suffered an intense backlash. At this moment, a trace of pink blood was still flowing from the corner of her mouth, and her gaze unconsciously turned towards Long Houchen at the top of the Exorcist Mountain Pass walls. Long Houchen was also looking in her direction. What made Sidi's body shake once more was that even though her body had already fallen into an extremely weak state and her spiritual energy had been severely overdrawn, when she landed at the top of the Exorcist Mountain Pass walls, Long Houchen's eyes were still so clear that there wasn't the slightest impurity in them. Sidi gave a muffled groan once more, and spat out a mouthful of blood. "We'll cover their retreat. Give the order to retreat." In fact, the demons had long since retreated in disorder. The Assassin Temple's powerhouse's charge had caused the demon army to fall into complete chaos. Then, under the influence of the heavenly demon's desire for dance, they trampled on each other, causing the demon army to be utterly routed. The demon's ability to command an army wasn't very strong. Their individual strength and battle instincts weren't something that humans could compare to. But it was also because of this that mobilizing the demon's army was extremely difficult. After suffering several serious blows and influences in succession, even the demon god's order was unable to make the demon army completely obey their orders. "What are you waiting for? Fire the cannons for me, fire with all your strength." Sheng Lingxin, who had regained his consciousness, practically shouted these words at the top of his lungs. At this moment, because of his emotional agitation, his body was even fiercely trembling. When he regained consciousness, it just so happened that Long Houchen's seven-colored golden light had vanished. Seeing Long Houchen falling from the sky and landing on the top of the Exorcist Mountain Pass walls, one could well imagine his current mood. It was his son-in-law who had once again saved the Exorcist Mountain Pass. He had also seen the demons' chaos with his own eyes. If he didn't beat them while they were down, then when would he? Unfortunately, under the influence of the demon god's heavenly demon's desire for dance forbidden spell, not everyone had regained their consciousness. Even if they had regained their consciousness, their physical condition was still very poor. So much so that only a few of the magic cannons truly fired. However, the Exorcist Mountain Pass being unable to launch an effective counterattack didn't mean that the Assassin Temple couldn't. Xing Yu, who had previously retreated, had now led a group of Assassin Temple's powerhouses to counterattack. Although their numbers weren't many, not one of them wasn't an absolute elite of the Assassin Temple. Moreover, the reversal of the situation had also allowed Xing Yu to regain his calm. He didn't lead the Assassin Temple's powerhouses to attack the depths of the demon army again. Instead, he went all out to kill those chaotic demons on the periphery. The 6 demon gods of the demons were doing their utmost to gather the chaotic army and simply couldn't care about their side. Under the influence of the heavenly demon's desire for dance, the demon army fell in front of Xing Yu and the others like wheat being cut. Although the war hadn't ended yet, these assassin powerhouses could completely foresee that an unprecedented victory was right in front of them. At this time, Han Yu had already arrived at Long Houchen's side and shouted to Sheng Lingxin, who was on top of the city wall, "Lord Chief, please bring Kai Er over. We have a way to speed up the recovery of her spiritual power." At this time, the overall situation had already been decided. The only thing left on the Exorcist Mountain Pass was to heal the wounded and rescue the dying. Sheng Lingxin and Lan Yenyu hurriedly brought the semi-conscious Kai Er to Long Houchen's side. Although Long Houchen was very weak, his mental state was still very good. Seeing the trace of blood at the corner of Kai Er's mouth, he couldn't help but pull her into his embrace. His eyes were full of pity. At this time, a gentle white light was emitted from Han Yu's body, and in a flash, it shrouded an area with a diameter of 10 meters. Over the past year, his Light's Protection spiritual stove had already completed an evolution. Its range of coverage was a bit larger, and its recovery effect was also stronger. While it could greatly speed up the recovery of spiritual power, it also had an extremely strong healing effect. Moreover, Han Yu's consumption of spiritual power wasn't that serious, so he immediately cast a light healing magic on Kai Er's body, healing the overdraft of her body. The ability of Light's Protection naturally didn't only fall on Long Houchen and Kai Er's body. Star King, Xing Lingxin, Lan Yinyu and her husband, as well as the nearby soldiers of the Exorcist Mountain Pass were also shrouded within it. Xing Lingxin was astonished as he sensed the changes in the spiritual power within his body. He couldn't help but be greatly shocked. This is the power of a spiritual stove? But what kind of spiritual stove is this? In his memory, there wasn't such an existence among the light-type spiritual stoves. Such a powerful recovery ability, it should be comparable to the power of a first-rank spiritual stove. It seemed that he had really fallen behind the times. The strength of the youngsters had actually reached such a level. Under the effect of the Light's Protection spiritual stove, the weakness in Long Houchen's body was reduced, and Star King also became a bit more spirited. Kai Er also gradually woke up from her semi-conscious state, but when she discovered that she was in Long Houchen's embrace, she fortunately closed her eyes again. Having lost her memories, she had also lost her previous strength. Now she was more like a weak young girl. In her weak state, she needed a warm embrace to rely on. The duration of this battle wasn't long, but in the Exorcist Mountain Pass holy war against the demons, it played a decisive role. The demon setback wasn't only due to a large number of soldiers being killed or injured, but more importantly, their morale suffered an unprecedented blow. For the Exorcist Mountain Pass, this was a thorough victory, a complete victory. With a relatively small loss, the demons suffered a heavy setback. In addition, with the fall of 2 demon gods, the Exorcist Mountain Pass' always inferior position could be said to have received a fundamental change. If the 6 demon gods wanted to organize such an all-out attack, the Exorcist Mountain Pass might not be afraid. After more than 2 hours of work, the demon army could be considered to have completely retreated, leaving behind a large number of demons' corpses in front of the Exorcist Mountain Pass. The soldiers of the Exorcist Mountain Pass, who had recovered some of their physical strength, quickly left the city under Xing Lingxin's command to clean up the battlefield. The demons' corpses were gathered together, and after digging out their magic crystals, they were immediately set on fire to prevent the corpses from bringing a plague. At the same time, it also prevented the demons from using them as food. They busied themselves all the way until evening, when the curtains completely fell on the war. And in the distance, the demon army that had gathered together with difficulty, even their main tent had been burned, and the remaining food supplies were pitifully little. The scene was truly a bit miserable. This was a decisive victory, and the morale of the soldiers of the Exorcist Mountain Pass was unprecedentedly high. Their weakness and injuries were quickly recovering. With a large number of magic crystals replenished, all the magic cannons once again had the ability to display their might. In the following half a month, the Exorcist Mountain Pass adopted a completely domineering attitude towards the demons. Xing Yu personally led the elites of the Assassin Temple to attack the demons several times under the cover of the night. Every time, they would leave after a brief encounter. Although the losses to the demons weren't great, they disturbed the peace of the demons who had lost their tents. With the lack of supplies and morale completely gone, the demon god of emotion Sidi had no choice but to order the entire army to retreat 50 kilometers, pulling away from the Exorcist Mountain Pass. And at this time, a new batch of supplies and 30,000 reserve soldiers from the Temple League entered the Exorcist Mountain Pass, giving the Exorcist Mountain Pass enough fresh troops. Using Xing Yu's words, with the current situation, the Exorcist Mountain Pass could defend for a few more years without a problem. They could even launch a counterattack against the demons at any time. Of course, the premise was that the demons didn't increase their troops on the front lines. Was it possible for the demons to increase their troops? The answer was, of course, yes, but it was also uncertain. Launching this holy war was also a huge burden for the demons. The demons had practically mobilized the power of their entire race, simultaneously threatening the humans in the Six Great Stronghold. A year and a half of war had already greatly reduced the strength of the demons and the Temple League. Of course, the demons still had a certain amount of reserve power, and the most powerful defying demon dragons, moon devils, and star demons hadn't joined the battle. However, this was also the demons' trump card. If they really used this trump card, it would inevitably be a life or death situation. How could the demon emperor not be cautious? Moreover, although the demon army outside the Exorcist Mountain Pass had suffered an unprecedented blow, their own strength wasn't enough to break the pass, but their defense was more than enough. With the Exorcist Mountain Pass's current overall strength, if they directly clashed with the demon army on the plains, they still wouldn't be able to gain the upper hand. Therefore, the demons didn't necessarily need to increase their troop. As for how emotion demon god Seti would explain this crushing defeat to the demon emperor, that was her business. On a small path in the Exorcist mountain range, Long Houchen and Kair sat upright on the Star King's back, while Han Yu stood to the side. The three of them were looking at the distant Exorcist mountain pass. Kair's beautiful eyes were already hazy with tears. She nestled in Long Houchen's embrace, her tender body lightly trembling. She couldn't forget the expression in the eyes of a great-grandfather and her parents when she left. They didn't send her out of the city, because they were afraid they wouldn't be able to control their emotions. The situation in the Exorcist Mountain Pass had already stabilized, so it was time to leave. Long Houchen tightly hugged Kair's slender waist, lowered his head, and lightly touched the top of her head. "We will return." Lightly nodding her head, Kair bit her red lips. "Let's go." She was afraid that if they didn't leave, they might really rush back to the Exorcist Mountain Pass. No one could have predicted the final outcome of the Exorcist Mountain Pass great battle. Although Long Houchen didn't directly kill any of the enemies, there was no need to doubt his and Kair's role in this great battle. Kair was directly announced as the successor of the Assassin Temple's next temple master. And Long Houchen also obtained the highest honor of a non-member of the Assassin Temple, the title of Assassin Temple's honorary temple master. This honor wasn't obstructed in any way, because Long Houchen's contribution to the Assassin Temple was too great. Relying on the refraction of the Sun-Moon Divine Snail's shield, he turned the tide, and forcibly turned an absolute disadvantage into an advantage. He heavily injured the demons, and also prevented the Exorcist Mountain Pass from being destroyed. It could be said that he saved the Exorcist Mountain Pass, and saved the Assassin Temple. The Hall Master of Honor's reward was well-deserved, and it was unanimously approved. Adding on his relationship with Long Houchen's prestige in the Assassin Temple and the Exorcist Mountain Pass was already comparable to Xing Yu. The name Jingji No. 12 had already been firmly remembered by the Exorcist Mountain Pass soldiers. The Knights Templars' new generation Holy Knight, Long Houchen, was praised as the Assassin Temple's eternal companion, eternal family. However, they still had to continue on their path. Their next stop was the Magic Temple's Jialing Mountain Pass, and they would meet up with Lin Xian. When Long Houchen left the Knights Templar's dragon-resisting mountain pass, he didn't think that he would really be able to complete a 1,000,000 contribution points mission in another temple. But in fact, his contribution to the Exorcist Mountain Pass had already far exceeded the scope of 1,000,000 contribution points. It was absolutely well-deserved. At the same time, he was also looking forward to meeting up with his companions and reorganizing the Commander-grade Monster Hunt 64. After several battles, Long Houchen had built up enough confidence, and he had now truly grown into a powerhouse of his generation. Even if he were to face the demon's ninth-step powerhouses, he would still have the strength to fight. The Temple League was so tolerant of him, and he was practically impatient to make his due contribution to the League. Only in the demon's territory, only in the enemy's rear, was his true stage, and there, he could blossom his strength without any misgivings. Star King turned his horse around, and in the next moment, he had already soared into the sky with Long Houchen and Kair flying towards the south. Han Yu also unfurled his spiritual wings and followed closely behind. Out of the 7 members of the Commander-grade Monster Hunt 64, 3 had already gathered, and the next step was to welcome back their companions. Star King flew very steadily, and sitting on its back, they didn't feel any impact from the airflow, as if they were sitting on the ground. Han Yu was currently at the 7th step, and his spiritual wings were enough to support him for a period of time. Long Houchen originally invited him to ride on Star King. After all, Star King's body was huge, and there was plenty of space. However, Han Yu still rejected. He didn't want to be a third wheel, and disturb Long Houchen and Kai. However, looking at them, Han Yu couldn't help but feel envious. In the Commander-grade Monster Hunt 64, Long Houchen had Kai Lin Xian already had Lin Xian, Wang Yuanyuan had Zhang Fangfang, Chen Ying also had a fiancé, and even Sima Xian had his own goal, his little white flower. Only Han Yu was still a loner, and it would be a lie to say that he didn't have any thoughts. In his heart there was also a beautiful figure, but this figure wasn't too clear, and he didn't take the initiative to do anything. Han Yu's thinking was different from others. As a demon hunter, as Long Houchen's retainer knight, he actually only had one goal, and that was to closely follow in Long Houchen's footsteps and improve his own strength. He hoped that one day, he could wear the divine armor of the Throne of God alongside Long Houchen and fight against the demons. Although he could feel that the gap between him and Long Houchen was constantly widening, the obsession in his heart never disappeared. As long as he worked hard, there would be a chance, and if he didn't work hard, there would be no chance at all. He wasn't the son of light, and he knew that he had already done his best. He would continue to work hard, and continue to chase after Long Houchen. During his 1.5 years in the Knights Templars, when Long Houchen was still in seclusion, Han Yu was astonished to find that among his peers, there was practically no one who could compare to him. The gap between him and Long Houchen wasn't small, but if he inadvertently looked back, he would discover that he was also a genius in the eyes of the other Knight Templars. Looking forward, chasing after Long Houchen meant that he would always be able to maintain the title of genius. Fighting together with the Son of Light was also a huge boost for him. The distance from the dragon-resisting mountain pass to the Exorcist mountain pass was relatively far, but the distance from the Exorcist mountain pass to the Jialing mountain pass was relatively close. The Jialing mountain pass was located to the south of the Exorcist mountain range, and from the topography, the Jialing mountain pass was located on a plateau. Although it wasn't as dangerous as the Exorcist mountain pass, it still had the geographical position of one man holding the pass against 10,000 enemies. To the left of the Jialing mountain pass was a huge lake, behind it was an even higher plateau, and to the right was the Exorcist mountain range. Among the 6 strongholds of the 6 Great Temple, the one with the most stable defense was the Jialing mountain pass. This was because the lethality of a magician was too terrifying. Among the 6 Great Temple, only the Magic Temple could compare to the Knights Templars in terms of overall strength. Moreover, the combat strength of a magician in battle was even stronger than that of a knight. Moreover, the Magic Temple and the Warrior Temple had a good relationship, and the Warrior Temple had considerable support for them. The 2 Great Temple cooperated with each other to defend the Jialing mountain pass impregnable. After more than a year of the Holy War, the Jialing mountain pass had received the least amount of assistance from the Alliance. Relying on the powerful attack power of the magicians, the demons were rarely able to attack the top of the city wall. The demon army outside the Jialing mountain pass was also quite powerful. Among the 8 great demon gods, the infernal demon god Marbus, who was ranked 5th, was the leader. Although this lineup could not be compared to the Knights Templars, it should not be forgotten that the natural environment of the Knights Templars was too harsh, while the Jiaoling Mountain Pass did not have this problem. Most of the main forces of the infernal demons were outside the Jiaoling Mountain Pass. At the same time, among the 8 great demon gods here, 6 of them were all ranked in the top 32 of the 72 demon god pillars. Even so, they and the Jiaoling Mountain Pass were more of a confrontation. Relatively speaking, the casualties of both sides were the lowest among all the strongholds in the Holy War. Most of the time, they fought in the form of magic bombardment, and no one could break the other's defensive barrier. After 2 days of continuous flying, Long Houchen and the others could already see the location of the Jiaoling Mountain Pass from afar. Looking down from the sky, the first thing they saw was the huge lake beside the Jiaoling Mountain Pass. The lake water was as clear as a mirror, and it was exceptionally dazzling as it reflected the sunlight. The area of the Jiaoling Mountain Pass was extremely large, at least 3 times that of the Exorcist Mountain Pass. The top of the city wall was wide and solid. Looking down from the sky, one could clearly feel the majesty of this impregnable pass. Moreover, after entering this area, Long Houchen could clearly feel that the fluctuations of the magic elements in the air were much stronger than in other places. Although he did not know why this was so, this kind of environment was clearly the most suitable for magicians. Moreover, there was no existence of the dark element in the rich magic elements, so the demons could not gain any advantage here. Han Yu said to Long Houchen, "Boss, when we were at the Knights Templars, I heard that the defense of the Jiaoling Mountain Pass was the strongest. However, the Magic Temple had a strong desire to protect their own strength, and was unwilling to transfer more magicians to support the other temple. In fact, there is still a lot of strength that they have yet to use." This point received a lot of criticism during the Alliance Conference. Long Houchen looked at Han Yu with some surprise. "The Holy War is a matter for all of us. Could it be that the Magic Temple would cherish their own treasures?" Long Houchen asked doubtfully. Han Yu said, "Actually, it can't all be blamed on the Magic Temple. The amount of resources needed to nurture a magician is the greatest among all professions, especially high-level magicians. This was especially true for high-tier magicians. Every single one of them was an extremely precious resource to the Magic Temple. Therefore, they only supported the Warrior Temple from nearby. As for the other 4 great temples, the strength of their support is relatively small." Although Han Yu did not say it too clearly, Long Houchen could faintly understand the meaning of his words. The relationship between the Knights Templars and the Magic Temple was not too harmonious. After all, these 2 temples had always been competing for the position of chief among the 6 temples. For many years, the Magic Temple had always been ranked second. How could they be willing to accept this? In terms of overall strength, the Magic Temple actually surpassed the Knights Templars in many aspects. It was only because the Knights Templars had the 6th throne of God, and the 3 Knight of the Seal's strength was not something that any magician in the Magic Temple could contend with alone. Therefore, their position was always a bit behind the Knights Templars. Of course, in the Alliance, the reputation of the Knights Templars was much better than that of the Magic Temple. After the Holy War started, the support of the Knights Templars for the other 5 great fortresses was much stronger than that of the Magic Temple. Of course, the support that the Knights Templars gave to the Magic Temple was not much. Both sides were always in a subtle competitive relationship. In a few years, the Temple League's ranking competition would start again. This was also the most important competition in the Alliance, and it was even more important than the Monster Hunters trials. Of course, they did not know if this year's ranking competition would be held. If the Holy War continued, it would probably be very difficult. Just as Long Houchen was deep in thought, 3 figures flew towards them like lightning from afar. Long Houchen and the other 2 were flying towards Jiaoling Pass from the back. They did not hide their tracks, and it was obvious that they had been discovered by the people at Jiaoling Pass. Soon, the three figures arrived in front of them. They were three magicians. The spiritual wings on their backs revealed their identity. They were all powerhouses of the magic temple above the 6th level. The three of them wore magic robes of different colors. The magic caster in the lead was shockingly young, looking to be only in his 30s. However, the pair of spiritual wings on his back was rather wide, and his cultivation was most likely above the 7th tier. It was rare to see a magician with the 7th level cultivation at such a young age. Moreover, this magician was of the light element. He was also very handsome. Seeing Long Houchen in his golden foundation armor, the light magician could not help but be slightly stunned. Especially when he saw Kyr in front of Long Houchen, his eyes shone with a hint of splendor. Not only was Kyr beautiful, but she also had an indescribable temperament that ordinary girls could not compare to. This was brought about by the physique of a blessed, and it was gradually formed by Kyr's training in the spiritual stove of samsara since young. If she did not lose her memory, this temperament would be even more obvious, but it would also be colder. Greetings, knight on a golden pedestal. How can I help you? The light magician quickly shifted his gaze to Long Houchen. Riding on the glorious star unicorn king, and wearing the golden foundation armor, there was no doubt that he was the leader of the three people in front of him. Long Houchen smiled indifferently and said, "Greetings, we are here to find a friend. At the same time, if Jialing Pass needs it, we are also willing to help Jialing Pass to fight against the demons." Chapter 192. There was a slight change in the light magician's eyes. He smiled and said, "Then may I ask who you are looking for? We should be able to defend Jialing Pass for now." Han Yu frowned and floated forward. He said, "Can you lead us into Jialing Pass first?" Although this young magician was excellent, he was only at the 7th grade. Long Houchen was wearing the golden foundation armor, which represented his high status in the Knights Templars. It was unreasonable for an ordinary 7th grade magician to stop them in the air and interrogate them in detail. The light magician was slightly taken aback, but his expression quickly returned to normal. "I'm sorry I've been rude. Please follow me." As he spoke, he turned around, beckoned his two companions, and flew towards Jialing Pass below. Han Yu's expression softened a little. He followed Star King and flew down. Kyr whispered to Long Houchen, "I don't like the look in his eyes." Long Houchen lightly nodded his head. He naturally saw that when this light magician was staring at Kyr, he didn't have the slightest intention of concealing it. However, he didn't care too much. The alliance was formed by the 6 temples, and it was during the Holy War. Although the light magician was rude, he didn't want to argue with him. Soon, the 6 of them flew about 500 meters above Jialing Pass. The 3 magicians in front suddenly flashed. They could vaguely feel a strong magical wave coming from them. They continued to fly forward. "Han Yu, wait!" Long Houchen suddenly called out to Han Yu. At the same time, Star King also stopped. "What's wrong, Captain?" Han Yu asked in confusion. Long Houchen's face behind the mask showed some confusion. He said, "There seems to be a defensive barrier. We didn't pass through the magic array, so we will be stopped by the barrier." Hearing him say this, Han Yu suddenly flew into a rage. He angrily said to the 3 magicians who had already flown into the barrier, "What do you mean by this?" When the 3 magi saw that Long Houchen and the other 2 hadn't followed them, they were surprised. The light magus in the lead had a look of shock on his face as he hurriedly apologized. "I'm sorry, I forgot to give you 3 sealing marks. I'm really sorry." As he spoke, he once again flew out and handed over 3 imprints that resembled tokens with rich magical fluctuations to Long Houchen and the others. Han Yu narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Have you really forgotten?" The light magician's face turned cold. "Friend Knight, what is the meaning of this? Could it be that I did it on purpose?" Han Yu sneered. "You know best whether it was intentional or not." The light magus said calmly, "Isn't your knight very powerful? The first temple of the Alliance. Even without my seal, a small barrier shouldn't be able to stop you, right? I didn't think that your knight would also fear the barrier of our magic temple." Hearing this, Han Yu's anger flared up. Just as he was about to explode, Long Houchen raised his hand to stop him. "Let's go," Long Houchen said calmly, "then let the Star King fly into the barrier." The light magician's face revealed a trace of imperceptible pride. Sure enough, when the Star King flew to the place where the three magicians were emitting strong magical waves, a layer of transparent light blocked their way. The sealing marks in Long Houchen and Kai Er's hands suddenly emitted a gentle light, but the Star King's body couldn't pass through. This obviously wasn't a mistake. The light magician clearly did this on purpose. How could he not know that magical beasts needed a special mark to pass through the seal? Long Houchen turned around and looked coldly at the light magician. Kai who was in front of him, suddenly moved. A biting cold murderous intent exploded from Kai Er's body. Then, a cold gray light slashed forward. There was an ear-piercing sound in the air, and a black mark suddenly appeared on the transparent seal. Then, the black mark suddenly split open, revealing bits of starlight. The Star King spread his wings and flew in with Long Houchen and Kai passing through the barrier. Han Yu followed closely behind, using the seal mark to fly into the barrier. The three magicians, however, stood rooted to the ground. They actually broke through the seal? Although the power of the Magic Temple's seal wasn't too strong, it was enough to stop a 7th-grade fighter. It was specially used to defend against the demons in the air. The overall defensive effect was excellent, and it also had a good warning function. The light magician only wanted to make things difficult for Long Houchen and the others. After all, from their attire, Long Houchen and Han Yu were both knight. He only wanted to wait for Long Houchen to speak again, and then help them enter the barrier. He didn't think that they would actually dare to make a move against the Magic Temple's barrier. And the one who made a move was not the knight, but the beautiful woman. The murderous intent that she released when she made her move, the light magician couldn't help but shiver. What kind of cultivation did she have to be able to do that? The Star King flew into the barrier. This time, Long Houchen didn't wait for the three magicians, and directly let the Star King fly into Jiaoling Pass. If people respect me, I will respect them tenfold. Long Houchen was already very tolerant before, but as the acting Holy Knight of the Knights Templars, he couldn't bear it anymore. The light magician calmed himself down and hurriedly flapped the wings on his back, chasing after Long Houchen and the others. Seeing that Long Houchen and the others were about to enter Jiaoling Pass, a dozen figures suddenly flew up from below and quickly flew towards them. "Don't do it!" An old voice sounded, and the dozen figures that flew up immediately spread out, surrounding Long Houchen and the others in the middle. The Star King spread his wings and floated in midair. The ones blocking their way were all magicians, and their leader was an old man with a wingspan of more than 8 meters. The dense magical elemental fluctuations around his body showed his lofty status. Knight on a golden pedestal? Hello, did you touch the magic barrier? The old magician saw the golden foundation armor on Long Houchen's body, and his hostility immediately disappeared. He gave Long Houchen a magician's salute. Long Houchen crossed his right fist across his chest, and returned the salute. "Hello, I am the acting Holy Knight of the Knights Templars. You can call me Jingji number 12. We were the ones who broke the barrier, but this should just be a misunderstanding." At this time, the light magician had already flown over with his two companions. Seeing the old magician, his expression changed slightly, and he stepped forward to salute. "Hello, Elder Fei." Seeing that it was him, Elder Fei's expression softened a bit. "Xian Yuan, what's going on? Why did this acting Holy Knight Chief break our enchantment?" His question showed the power of the temple. As the acting Holy Knight, Long Houchen was asking his own people for the reason, and his words were not polite at all. Xian Yuan looked a little embarrassed and quickly said, "Elder Fei, it's my fault. I forgot to give the Holy Knight a sufficient seal." His mount couldn't pass through, so they broke the barrier and came in themselves. Hearing this, Elder Fei raised his eyebrows and smiled at Long Houchen, so it was a misunderstanding. Acting Holy Knight, you really have a good cultivation. Long Houchen smiled indifferently. You flatter me. Please lead us into the city, Elder. Elder Fei didn't blame Xian Yuan, instead, he subtly stabbed him. Long Houchen acted like he didn't hear it. This was Jialing Pass, and he was here to fight against the demons, not to cause trouble with the magic temple. If they wanted to protect him, then so be it. Please. Elder Fei glanced at Xian Yuan, and then led Long Houchen into Jialing Pass. The other sorcerers immediately spread out on both sides. Xian Yuan looked at the backs of Long Houchen and the others. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Why did the Temple of Knights send an acting paladin? Although Long Houchen didn't say anything, his disregard made Xian Yuan even angrier. Ever since Elder Fei appeared, Long Houchen didn't even look at him. For a genius of the magic temple, this in itself was a great provocation. Elder Fei led Long Houchen and the others into Jialing Pass. When the Star King landed on the ground, Long Houchen also floated down with Kair. This was etiquette. In someone else's territory, it was impolite to ride a mount when not in battle. Elder Fei couldn't help but secretly nod. He thought to himself that this holy knight was very well-mannered. He knew Xian Yuan Yan's temper very well. He must have been the one who provoked the other. However, this was a battle between the Magic Temple and the Knights Templars, so he had no choice but to stand on Xian Yuan Yan's side. However, Long Houchen's behavior made him have a good impression on him. Holy Knight Elder, let me bring you to our temple to rest first. I will immediately inform the temple master later. Elder Fei had a good impression of Long Houchen, so he spoke more politely. With the identity of the Holy Knight Elder of the Knights Templars, it was enough for him to be received by the temple master of the Magic Temple. Then I will have to trouble you, Long Houchen said. Oh, by the way, may I trouble you to ask if Lin Xian is doing well? He is the grandson of the Vice-Temple Master of your temple, Holy Magus Lin Chen. Although Lin Xian's grandfather was an 8th-grade Holy Magus, he was also a Vice-Temple Master. He was mainly in charge of the affairs of the Magic Temple in the Temple League. The Vice-Temple Masters of the 6 temples in the Alliance were basically all at the peak of the 8th grade. This was mainly because the stronger ones stayed in their respective temples. These Vice-Temple Masters were all promoted after making great contributions to their respective temples. You know Lin Xian? Elder Fei looked at Long Houchen in surprise. Long Houchen nodded and said, That's right. Lin Xian is my good friend. When Elder Fei heard what he said, his face instantly turned strange. His expression also gave Long Houchen a fright. What's wrong? Elder Fei, did something happen to Lin Xian? Long Houchen asked anxiously. No, of course not. Elder Fei hurriedly said, Commander Lin is very well. I will bring you to rest first, then inform him to see you. Commander? What regiment is Lin Xian now? Han Yu couldn't help but ask curiously. Elder Fei smiled and said, Commander Lin is now in charge of the Magic Temple's 1st Magician Regiment. He has 500 fire magicians under him. They are the mainstay of our Jialing Pass against the demon army. When Han Yu heard this, he immediately laughed. The Crown Prince faction is indeed different. He doesn't even know how to attack, but he can actually command a magician army. Elder Fei's expression turned serious and said, This night, please take back your words. Commander Lin relied on his contributions to Jialing Pass and accumulated military merits to become the 1st Magician Regiment's commander. This has nothing to do with him. Moreover, who said that he doesn't know how to attack? Commander Lin's combat strength is definitely second to none among the magicians of the same rank. Even some of the mages with higher cultivation than him couldn't compare to him in terms of usefulness on the battlefield. Han Yu was stunned, then laughed and said, Do you think I don't know him as well as you? He and I are from the same monster hunters. Since when did he know how to attack? Elder Fei said in surprise. You and Commander Lin are from the same monster hunters? But Commander Lin's attack is really powerful. Han Yu didn't argue and said with a smile, maybe. I haven't seen him for a long time. Maybe he learned something again? You'll know when you see him. The magic temple was a huge palace. From this building, one could see the wealth of the magic temple. The temple was 6 floors high. The huge palace was the tallest building in Jiaoling Pass. Just the first floor alone was more than 20 meters high. The architectural style was simple and elegant. There was a huge 6-pointed star symbol at the top of the first floor. Around the 6-pointed star, there were light balls that represented various magical attributes revolving around the 6-pointed star. There should be some special magic circle. Walking into the magic temple, one could only describe it as a huge hall. It had a tall dome and gorgeous decorations. It was luxurious but not vulgar. Magical symbols could be seen everywhere. The surrounding walls were densely packed with high elves' print. Walking in, one could clearly feel that the various elemental waves in the air were more than twice as strong as outside. It was just that the various elements were a little mixed and messy. However, the almost viscous magical elements were enough to shock people. Even if an ordinary person came here, they could feel the difference in the air compared to other places. Inside the front of the hall there were 6 huge statues. The 2 statues in the innermost were gold and black, while the 4 statues on the outside were blue, red, yellow, and green. The 6 statues were of different shape. Among them, the gold and blue statues were female, while the other 4 were male. These 6 statues were the 6 elemental gods that the magic temple believed in. They represented water, fire, earth, wind, light, and darkness respectively. Mages had different attributes. These 6 were not the only ones. There were also some derivative attributes, such as lightning and ice. However, the world of magic believed that all other attributes were based on the 6 elemental attribute. Hence, these 6 basic elements were the foundation of all magic. The elemental gods were also the highest gods that they believed in. Long Haochen and the other 2 knew the rules of the magic temple. They stepped forward at the same time and bowed slightly to the 6 statues. At this moment, a strange scene appeared. The statue of the goddess of light on the inner side actually lit up and emitted a gentle golden light. Elder Fei was shocked. It should be known that these 6 elemental statues weren't randomly placed here. They were truly miracles left behind by the 6 elemental gods in this world. The ancestors of the magic sacred temple had racked their brains to gather these miracles together and place them in the magic sacred temple. The powerful barrier of the Jiaoling Pass used these 6 statues as the core. It could be said that these 6 statues together were a divine weapon of all attribute. They were also one of the most precious treasures of the magic temple. At this moment, the statue that represented the goddess of light was emitting light. This meant that there was a power of the same origin as her that had triggered her aura. Elder Fei had been paying attention to Long Haochen and the other 2. The 3 of them had not done anything just now. What was going on? What shocked Elder Fei even more was yet to come. The gentle golden light emitted by the statue of the goddess of light gradually gathered and turned into a golden pillar of light that enveloped Long Haochen's body. It made the orange light emitted by his golden foundation armor look even more dazzling. There were more people in the hall of the magic temple. There were other people, but when the statue of the goddess of light displayed its miracles, they immediately became the focus of the entire hall. Long Haochen did not expect such a situation to happen. Being enveloped by the gentle golden light, the warm light elements shuttled back and forth in his body, giving him an indescribable sense of restraint. He felt that the statue of the goddess of light was like a mother comforting her child. It would not increase his strength, but it was comforting his soul. The light elements emitted by the statue of the goddess of light were very strange. There were no spiritual fluctuations, but they were extremely pure. Long Houchen's soul was once again cleansed, just like when he obtained the Sun-Moon Divine Snail's shield. This was a good opportunity that could not be obtained. Spiritual power could be cultivated through continuous hard work, but it was much more difficult to get rid of the impurities in one's heart than to cultivate spiritual power. One must calmly cultivate for a long period of time in order to achieve this. As for Long Houchen, who was the son of the light, the purer his heart was, the stronger his perception of the light elements would be. Whether it was when cultivating or using skills, the effect would be better. The light from the statue of the goddess of light did not shine for too long. In the time of a dozen breaths, the light faded and everything returned to normal. However, in such a short period of time, there were already at least a dozen mages in the magic temple's hall who stopped to watch, their eyes filled with astonishment. Seeing that the golden light had disappeared, Elder Fei could not help but quickly walk to Long Houchen's side and anxiously asked, "Esteemed Holy Knight Elder, how did you do that? This is unbelievable." Long Houchen had already woken up from the comfort of being bathed in the light element. He shook his head and said, "I didn't do anything. It was as if everything happened naturally. Is this phenomenon very special?" Elder Fei said without hesitation, "Of course it's special. The last time the elemental statue showed a miracle was when the Temple Lord ascended to the throne. The Temple Lord is the wind elemental emissary. At that time, the statue of the wind elemental god showed a miracle, just like what happened to you just now. I was fortunate enough to follow my teacher to witness that scene. If I remember correctly, that miracle only lasted for a few seconds. It wasn't as long as what you did just now. Are you sure you really didn't do anything?" Long Houchen shook his head again, but he refused to say anything more. The surrounding mages did not show any signs of dispersing. They all looked at Long Houchen with astonished eyes. One of the young female mages took a few steps forward, and very impolitely said, "Are you here to represent the Knights Templars to demonstrate to us?" This female mage had a beautiful appearance and a slender figure. Her green magic robe made her look neat and tidy, and her long black hair was tied with a green headband. In the center of the headband was a green diamond-shaped gem. He held a long staff in his right hand. The entire body of the staff was glittering and translucent, like a piece of cyan crystal. At the top of the staff was a transparent gem the size of a goose egg. Strangely, there was a cyan wind constantly fluttering inside the transparent gem. It was as if the gem was storing a tornado. Long Houchen frowned and said in a deep voice, "The 6 major temples are originally one, and they all belong to the Temple League. Mage, please be careful with your words." The young female mage ignored Long Houchen, and instead said to Elder Fei, "Elder, I have to report to my teacher about what happened just now." Elder Fei nodded and said, "That's great. I also have to go find the Temple Lord. Tell the Temple Lord that the acting Holy Knight of the Knights Templars has arrived." "Acting Holy Knight Elder? All right." The young female mage did not even say goodbye to Long Houchen. She immediately turned around and left. The other mages then left one after another. Elder Fei said to Long Houchen apologetically, "I'm sorry, Holy Knight Elder. Tan Wan was rude. I apologize on her behalf." Han Yu said coldly, "Who is she? How dare she be so rude to our Holy Knight Elder? We will report this matter to the Alliance." Elder Fei smiled bitterly, "I can't control this girl. She is the Temple Lord's direct disciple, and also the only disciple. She has always been arrogant, and her name is Tan Wan. She is already 26 years old, but she is still unmarried. However, she has the right to be arrogant. At such a young age, she has already reached the 3rd level of the 7th level. She, Xianyuan Yen, and Lin Xin are known as the 3 heroes of the younger generation of the Magic Temple. They have all reached the 7th level before the age of 30. Han Yu was pleasantly surprised. Lin Xin has also broken through the 7th level? That's great. Leader, this time we can. Just as he said this, he was stopped by Long Houchen's gaze. Han Yu also realized that he had misspoken, and quickly shut his mouth. However, the way he addressed Elder Fei attracted his attention. Previously, Han Yu said that he and Lin Xian were teammates in the same monster hunters, and he called Long Houchen leader. Didn't that mean that they were all in the same team of monster hunters? And every monster hunter's selection had an age limit. If Long Houchen was their leader, even if he was older than them, he shouldn't be much older. However, he was wearing a golden foundation armor that represented a powerhouse of at least the 8th level. Moreover, among the 8th level knight, those who could become a knight on a golden pedestal were all elites among the 8th level knight. Even a 9th level holy knight was not impossible. To become a knight on a golden pedestal at an age similar to Han Yu and Lin Xian, this was completely impossible. At least, in Elder Fei's heart, he did not believe that such a genius would appear. Moreover, this knight on a golden pedestal was the acting holy knight leader, and was also wearing an epic golden foundation armor. This meant that he should be the strongest among the knight on a golden pedestal. Moreover, he should have made a significant contribution to the Knights Templars in order to receive this honor. The previous Holy Knight leader, Han Qiu, was now the spokesperson of the Knights Templars leader, Yang Haohan in the Temple League. However, Elder Fei did not ask the question in his heart. Firstly, his position was not comparable to Long Houchen's, and secondly, it was not appropriate for him to pry into other people's secrets. Long Houchen's light attribute made it impossible for him to be a spy. Under the guidance of this elder, Long Houchen and the other two were brought to the 2nd floor of the Magic Temple and arranged into 3 rooms. Long Houchen and the other two had a long journey. After washing up and eating some food from the Magic Temple, the 3 gathered in Long Houchen's room. "The Magic Temple is not very friendly to us," Long Houchen said with a smile. Han Yu snapped, "It's not just unfriendly. It's practically hostile." Long Houchen frowned and said in a deep voice, "I didn't expect the relationship between the Magic Temple and the Knights Templars to become so tense. If this continues, I'm afraid there will be big problems in the future. If it's still like this when there's a strong enemy outside, then there's no need for the Devil Race to attack us. The alliance will collapse on its own." Han Yu nodded and said, "The conflict between the Knights Templars and the Magic Temple has been going on for a long time. Almost every time the temple ranking tournament, the final match will be between our 2 major temples. The Magic Temple has always been suppressed by us. It would be strange if they were willing. So, in the various affairs of the alliance, although we can't say that they are always against us, our relationship is definitely not good." Long Houchen said, "Let's wait for Lin Xian to come and talk." From what Elder Fei said, Lin Xian's status in the Magic Temple is not low. I hope he can mediate a little. As they were talking, a respectful voice came from outside. "Holy Knight Elder, the Temple Master would like to see you." Long Houchen and the other 2 looked at each other and stood up at the same time. A young mage was waiting outside the door. When he saw Long Houchen, he immediately made an inviting gesture. When Kair and Han Yu wanted to follow, they were stopped by the mage. "I'm sorry, the 2 of you. The Temple Master only wants to see Holy Knight Elder." Han Yu was already holding back his anger. He was about to explode when he was stopped. Long Houchen came back to his senses and shook his head. Han Yu suppressed his anger. "Go back to your rooms and rest. I'll be back soon. Maybe Lin Xian will come looking for us." Long Houchen followed the mage who came to invite him to the top floor of the Magic Temple. The entrance to the top floor was a door of light that was 3 meters tall. After passing through the door, Long Houchen was shocked. Behind the door was a large open space. It was at least much larger than the Magic Temple from the outside. Moreover, the waves of magical elements were denser and purer. The huge hall was several hundred meters in diameter. There were many doors around it. In the center of the hall was a shining magic hexagram. The young mage brought Long Houchen to the hexagram and said, "Please step into the magic array, and you will enter the temple master's office." Long Houchen asked curiously, "What is this floor?" The young mage said, "Every room here is a training field. Some of them are the residences of high-ranked mages. Only sacred magus and above can live here." Long Houchen saw undisguised pride in the young mage's eyes, but he didn't say anything. He took a step forward and entered the hexagram magic array in front of him. With a flash of light, he arrived in a separate space. His surroundings were filled with distorted light. The 6 elements of water, fire, earth, wind, light, and darkness assaulted his senses. It was impossible to see through the distorted light with one's eyes. Long Houchen released his mental strength. He could faintly sense that this was a separate space. It was just that there was a faint connection with his original plane. What powerful mental strength! If Sacred Knight Temple Master is willing to become a mage, your achievements will definitely shock the world. An old voice sounded. The distorted light around him suddenly changed. An old man with a smile appeared in front of Long Houchen. The illusory scene around him also became real. This old man wore a simple green robe. There wasn't even a trace of elemental waves on his robe. He didn't hold a magic staff in his hand either. He looked like an ordinary old man. He wasn't tall, but his waist wasn't small. His chubby body and smiling face gave off a very kind feeling. Beside the old man was the wind magus, Tan Wan, whom Long Houchen had met before. She was looking at Long Houchen with a somewhat vigilant gaze. "Greetings, Temple Masterly. I'm the acting Sacred Knight Temple Master of the Knights Templars, Jingjin number 12. I have a letter personally written by Temple Master Long of the Knights Templars for you." As he spoke, he bowed slightly to this Temple Masterly. The fat Temple Master of the Magic Temple was called Li Jingji. His name was very old-fashioned, but he was one of the strongest in the entire alliance. Don't think that he was kind just because he looked kind. In fact, among the top powerhouses in the alliance, he was the most vicious. Years ago, he had entered the territory of the demons alone and cast a forbidden spell in 6 provinces of the demons. The demon emperor was enraged and asked the moon demon Agars to chase him for thousands of miles. He had almost passed through the entire territory of the demons. No one could say for sure who won, but at least this temple master Li Jingji was fine. It was also this battle that made him famous and pushed him to become the current ruler of the Magic Temple. Looking at the bowing Long Houchen, Li Jingji's eyes revealed a hint of deep meaning. He smiled and said, "You're welcome, Sacred Knight Temple Master." As he spoke, he raised his right hand. One could see a surging green light rushing towards Long Houchen. It seemed to be trying to straighten his body, but when the green light hit Long Houchen, the force of the push shocked Long Houchen. "Is he testing me?" Long Houchen didn't have much of a competitive spirit, but as the sacred knight head of the Knight Temple, he naturally couldn't cowardly retreat at this time. His body slightly stiffened, and Long Houchen's aura suddenly changed subtly. A faint layer of gold spread from the golden foundation armor, and there was a faint buzzing sound. A wonderful scene appeared. When the green light hit Long Houchen, it pushed his body with all its strength. But as the layer of gold appeared on Long Houchen's body, the impact turned into a cover, surrounding Long Houchen's body. The green and gold colors resonated with each other, looking indescribably strange and dazzling. The female magician Tan Wan stood at the side with her eyes wide open. This was the first time she saw someone use this method to resolve her teacher's test. Although Long Houchen was a light attribute knight, she felt that he had completely integrated into the wind attribute spiritual power released by Li Jingji. The two sides were inseparable, but there was a clear distinction between them. Li Jingji's spiritual power obviously could not push Long Houchen. "Good," Li Jingji praised and said, "immovable as a mountain, condensing spiritual power to defend oneself, and accumulating spiritual power. If I'm not wrong, This skill of the Holy Knight Commander should be self-created. It uses the frequency of the elemental resonance to reach the same frequency as my wind attributes spiritual power, so that my spiritual power, which has no offensive power, can fuse with your spiritual power. What surprised me even more is that this skill can be combined with the divine block, and used with your body. How amazing! It seems that the Knights Templars will have another peerless expert. How enviable! Long Houchen said respectfully, Temple Masterly is too kind. Your strength is like the vast ocean. I am but a lone boat. He said this completely from the bottom of his heart. Although he used his evolved ripple of light to resist the impact of Li Jingji's spiritual power, the spiritual power immediately enveloped him like the vast ocean. If he wanted to rush out of it, he would have to use an extremely powerful impact skill. Only then would it be possible. Li Jingji laughed and said, "Come, let me see what old Long wrote in the letter." As he spoke, he raised his hand and waved in Long Houchen's direction. A green light turned into a thin rope and gently wrapped around the scroll in Long Houchen's hand. With a light tug, the scroll flew in his direction. As the saying goes, true knowledge is revealed from the subtleties. Although the amount of spiritual power he used was very little, he was able to use it freely like a spirit snake. Not a single bit of spiritual power leaked out. The strength of the spiritual power was at the level of a pilot. This level of control was something that Long Houchen had never seen in his life. This Palace Master Li's strength gave him an unfathomable feeling. Li Jingji raised his hand and tapped on the scroll. He didn't care how Long Houchen opened the scroll, and the scroll in his hand was already opened. Don't look down on these few moves of his. They looked simple, but they actually broke the spell formation of a magic scroll. Moreover, this spell formation was made by the Knight of the Seal, Long Tianyin. Moreover, Long Houchen could clearly feel that Li Jingji wasn't deliberately showing off. He was very naturally using his spiritual power to do daily things. It was easy to understand why he was so heavy. Spiritual power helped him do almost everything. His body didn't move much, so naturally, he would have accumulated fat. It was only natural that he was fat. Chapter 193. After opening the scroll, Li Jingji read it very seriously for a few minutes. Moreover, his expression kept changing as he read the scroll. After closing the scroll, Li Jingji closed his eyes as if he was thinking about something. After a while, he said to Tan Wan who was beside him, "You go out first. I have something to say to the Holy Knight." Tan Wan stared blankly. She was Li Jingji's direct disciple, as well as his only disciple. Although Li Jingji had a chubby appearance and always wore a gentle smile on his face, she knew very well that her teacher was filled with arrogance. He was even hailed as the #1 genius of the mage sanctuary in the past 1,000 years. Her teacher was only in his 60s this year, but he had already surpassed all the previous powerhouses of the mage sanctuary. In terms of cultivation, even the 3 great Knight of the Seal of the Knights Templars might not be her teacher's match. The reason why he only had 1 disciple was that among the younger generation of the Magic Temple, only she was recognized by her teacher for her talent. Moreover, she also had the same wind attribute as her teacher. Seeing the solemn expression on her teacher's face, Tan Wan immediately understood that the acting Holy Knight of the Knights Templars was not as simple as he seemed. Otherwise, her teacher would not have paid so much attention to him. Tan Wan also inherited Li Jingji's arrogance, but because she was still young, she did not hide this arrogance well and often showed it on the surface. However, this did not mean that she was not smart. On the contrary, her intelligence and talent were often praised by Li Jingji. After hearing her teacher's words, she only looked at Long Houchen in surprise. She immediately agreed obediently and walked to the side. In a wave of distorted ripples of light, she quietly disappeared into the air. After his disciple left, Li Jingji's face once again hung that harmless smile on his face. "Now can you take off your mask and let me see your true face, son of the light of Knights Templars?" golden light flowed, and the liquid-like adamantine foundation armor flowed down from Long Houchen's body and condensed into an adamantine foundation armor behind Long Houchen. Long Houchen crossed his right fist in front of his chest and said respectfully, "Knights Templars, Long Houchen greets the Temple Master." Looking at Long Houchen's excessively young and handsome face, Li Jingji was slightly startled. Although he concealed his emotions very well, the shock in his heart was still extremely intense. Long Tianyin had clearly written in the letter that Long Houchen was his grandson, and he was indeed officially appointed as the Holy Knight of Knights Templars. At the same time, Knights Templars had agreed to let him reorganize the monster hunters in hopes of getting help from the Magic Temple. If Jialing Pass needed it, he could also fight for Jialing Pass for a period of time, but not more than 3 months. Although Long Tianyin did not mention Long Houchen's cultivation in the letter, based on Li Jingji's understanding of Long Tianyin, he knew that with old Long Tianyin's stubborn personality, even his own grandson would not be able to wear this adamantine foundation armor if he was not strong enough. In addition to his previous probing, he could clearly feel that Long Houchen's cultivation was indeed above the 8th level. The purity of the light element emitted from the young man in front of him was something that Li Jingji had never seen before. Although he was handsome, his eyes were very calm, as if he was a professional who had been cultivating for 40 or 50 years. His precious disciple could never compare to that temperament. Sighing slightly, Li Jingji revealed a bitter smile. "I thought that it would be possible for the Magic Temple to replace us in the near future, but it seems that it is still impossible. The luck of the Knights Templars is really something that we cannot compare to." His words were said without rhyme or reason, but Long Houchen could understand the meaning behind it. This Temple Master Li in front of him was regarded as the biggest competitor of the Knights Templars, and was also known as the strongest in the alliance in terms of pure cultivation. His cultivation was so profound that it even surpassed those veteran legend-ranked monster hunters who had been cultivating for more than 100 years. In terms of pure cultivation, none of the 3 Knight of the Seal of the Knights Templars could compare to him. Before Long Houchen, the Knights Templars had placed all their hopes on Long Xingwu. However, the Knights Templars also understood that in terms of talent, Long Xingwu was slightly inferior to Li Jingji. Furthermore, Long Xingwu was much younger, and it was almost impossible for him to catch up to Li Jingji's cultivation in this lifetime. But who would have thought that the Knights Templars would produce another Long Houchen? From the beginning of his cultivation until now, Long Houchen had only used a little more than 10 years to become an 8th-level Holy Knight. With this speed of improvement, in addition to his talent as the Son of Light, the possibility of him surpassing the Temple Master of the Magic Temple in the future was very high. Faced with Li Jingji's sigh, Long Houchen did not utter a word. He only stared at the Temple Master of the Magic Temple in front of him with his clear eyes. Li Jingji kept the scroll in his hand and gestured inside, saying, "Sit, let's have a chat." As he spoke, he brought Long Houchen into the hall behind him and sat down on the sofa. The decorations in Li Jingji's office were not complicated, but it gave off a heavy feeling. All the furniture was made of a type of jet black wood. Long Houchen did not recognize this type of wood. It emitted a faint fragrance. Smelling this fragrance, Long Houchen could clearly feel that his mental strength seemed to have become more condensed. The most unique thing in the office was the bookshelf that stretched on one side of the wall. There were probably tens of thousands of books on it. Many of the books emitted a simple and unadorned feeling. Moreover, there were a few books that even gave Long Houchen a feeling of spirituality, as if these books were all alive. Li Jingji smiled and said, "Long Houchen, this time you are here to look for Lin Xian, right? Do you know? More than a year ago, before the Demon Emperor launched the Holy War, I was the leader in the alliance who agreed to hand you over. Do you know why?" Long Houchen was slightly taken aback. He did not expect the Temple Master of the Magic Temple to speak so directly. It is because the alliance is not ready for this holy war. There is still a gap in strength between us and the demons. We need time, replied Long Houchen calmly, as if what Li Jingji said was not to send him to die at all. Li Jingji said with some surprise, "It is rare for you to look at it normally. Many people think that I am doing this to attack the Knights Templars and to compete with the Knights Templars for the number 1 position in the temple. You are right, the alliance's accumulation is not enough. However, there is another reason why I propose to hand you over. It is because I am not ready." Long Houchen looked at the fat old man in front of him and suddenly had a special feeling in his heart. From Li Jingji, he felt a confidence that he had never felt before. The strength of that belief was even comparable to that of the demon emperor who controlled the demons. Li Jingji leaned against the back of the sofa and said leisurely, "Yes, I am not ready. For the past 6,000 years, the Temple League has been working hard and accumulating strength. Although it is inevitable that there will be conflicts between the 6 great temple, in the face of the great enemy, the demons, everyone is absolutely united. And if we want to launch a counterattack against the demons, recover our lost land, and even wipe the demons off the continent forever, then we must face the most important problem. And that is the Demon Emperor. Demon Emperor Fengxiu, it is said that his spiritual energy has reached 1,000,000, entering another level. If no one in the alliance can defeat him, then so what if the alliance's strength surpasses the demons? In the end, they will still not be able to escape the fate of failure. That is why I said that I am not ready. To say something arrogant, before I met you, I always thought that I was the most likely person to challenge him and drag him down with me." At this point, the confidence that Li Jingji exuded became stronger. "I am 67 years old this year. If I have another 100 years, maybe I will really have that chance. However, if the alliance is overturned, the final outcome will inevitably be a tragedy. So, I can't ruin this great situation just because of you. Unfortunately, the influence of the Knights Templars on the Alliance for many years is not something that I can compare to. In the end, my proposal still failed. However, now it seems that Yang Haohan and Long Tianyin are indeed right. You are worthy of such an investment from the Alliance." When saying this, Li Jingji suddenly seemed a little tired, but also a little relaxed, as if a huge pressure had been removed from his body. The mental fluctuations of a mage are the most sensitive. What surprised me is not your age, nor your cultivation, but your will. Your eyes are solemn, reserved, and restrained. This is a sign of incomparable determination. However, your eyes are simple, without the slightest bit of impatience or pride. The combination of these 2 qualities gives me a glimpse of your future. Very good, you are really very good. However, you still have a long way to go. I hope that you can take over the important task of challenging the Demon Emperor from me. I know that you Knights Templars have always hoped to unite the 6 major temples with yourselves as the main force, so that the Alliance's strength can be integrated, and the Alliance can truly exert its full strength to build a unified country to fight against the demons. I do not oppose this proposal, but I hope that the Magic Temple will take the lead. The other major temples also have their own ideas. So, this proposal has been put on hold for many years. If one day you can defeat me, then on behalf of the Magic Temple, I will agree to the proposal of the Knights Templars. At the same time, I will also give you the right to challenge the Demon Emperor." Long Houchen listened to Li Jingji's words quietly. From the beginning to the end, he did not interrupt a single word. He realized that he was starting to like this Lord of the Magic Temple. Although his words might not be pleasant to hear, it clearly expressed his approval of Long Houchen, as well as his expectations for the future of the Alliance. 2 sharp gazes shot out from Li Jingji's eyes, landing on Long Houchen's body like 2 sharp swords. Instantly, it triggered Long Houchen's own spiritual power. A layer of golden brilliance naturally overflowed from his body, forming a layer of protective Ling Gang. Li Jingji smiled faintly, withdrawing his gaze. Long Haochen, you have to remember, this world never lacks geniuses. Although a talent like yours is extremely rare, it's not like it hasn't appeared before. However, to this day, humanity has never produced a powerhouse that could truly contend against the demon god emperor. Do you know why? Long Haochen shook his head. Please speak, Lord. Li Jingji said, because they do not understand the word endure. As he listened to Li Jingji's words, Long Haochen's brain worked at high speed, but he still did not expect Li Jingji to give such an answer. In the past, the son of Samsara and the sword god of light were also amazingly talented people. They had also cultivated to the 9th rank, but in the end they still fell. At most, the demons were only slightly restrained. In terms of talent, they were definitely not below you, and even surpassed you. For example, the son of Samsara. Back then, he was only 36 years old, but he dared to challenge the demon emperor. How much confidence and strength did he have? In the end, he and the demon emperor were both injured. The sword god of light was in a similar situation. With their talent, it was possible for them to lead the humans to launch a large-scale counterattack against the demons, or at least reverse the situation. However, in the end, they all lost because of their impatience. Seeing the puzzled look in Long Haochen's eyes, Li Jingji said, "You don't understand, right? Then, let's put it simply. If the son of Samsara was not 36 years old when he challenged the demon emperor, but 136 years old, what would the situation be like? If the sword god of light was not in his 40s when he challenged the demon emperor, but 140 years old, what would the situation be like?" Long Haochen could not help but refute, however. These two seniors were forced to do so. The demon army was pressing on, and they had no choice but to take action. Li Jingji snorted, a trace of disdain appearing at the corner of his mouth. They had the same idea as you, so in the end, they could not truly become the leaders who led the humans to defeat the demons. Since the Dark Age more than 6,000 years ago, we have been forced to this corner of the land, and there has never been a time when we were forced to do anything. That's right, the demons will often advance and constantly launch battles. However, you have also dealt with the demons. What do you think of the strength of the alliance compared to the demons? Long Haochen said in a deep voice, "The demons are led by the 72 demon god pillars. They have many powerhouses, and their overall strength is extremely strong. The alliance relies on the combined strength of the 6 great strongholds and the 6 great temples to barely resist the demons' attack. In terms of strength, we are indeed inferior to the demons. Of course, I don't understand the true strength of the alliance." Li Jingji said, "What you said is very fair. Yes, the demons are stronger than us, and they are still stronger than us even now. Then, have you ever thought about what happened 6,000 years ago? What was the situation at that time? At that time, the demons were also the 72 demon god pillars, and the first-generation demon god was the most powerful in terms of overall strength. If they can force us into this corner, can't they completely destroy us? To tell you the truth, in the history of the confrontation between the Alliance and the demons have at least a dozen opportunities to completely destroy the Alliance. If the demon emperor did not care about the cost and led the demon army to break through at one point, we would have been completely destroyed long ago. The legacy of the human race has long ended." "Ah!" Long Haochen looked at Li Jingji in surprise. "Lord, what you said is true. Then why didn't the demons do this?" Li Jingji sneered, "Captive. The demons are captive. That's right, the demons are far stronger than us, but they don't belong to our world after all. Other than war and destruction, they don't know anything else. If we humans are really extinct, then no one needs to take revenge for us. The demons will go to their own destruction, and they will definitely go to their own destruction. Therefore, the demons don't dare to kill us at all, and they don't dare to destroy us humans. That's why the 6,000 years of Dark Ages came. Behind the scenes, the demons often make some deals with us. It's just that ordinary people don't know about it. Then what about this holy war? Long Haochen still didn't believe Li Jingji's words. Li Jingji said calmly, Holy war? You might be the fuse, but in fact, the root cause of this holy war is that the demons are afraid. Over the years, the alliance has grown too fast, and has already surpassed the demons' expectations. The demon emperor is afraid that our strength will grow too fast, and threaten the rule of the demons. At the same time, the number of demons is too large, and needs to be reduced. That's why this holy war broke out. That's why the 6 great temples were attacked at the same time, but none of them were broken. Long Haochen sucked in a breath of cold air. He had already faintly understood what Li Jingji meant. Li Jingji continued, in other words, back then, they didn't even encounter any life and death crisis. If talented people like the Radiant Sword God and the Son of Reincarnation had enough patience, and could wait until they had absolute confidence, the alliance wouldn't be like this now. You are a smart person, and I believe you can understand what I mean. Of course, I'm not telling you this to be a coward in the alliance. On the contrary, real growth and understanding requires continuous challenges from the strong, and continuous battles. But remember, try not to do things that you know you can't do. At this point, Li Jingji closed his eyes slightly, and leaned back on the sofa, as if thinking about something. Long Haochen said respectfully, Thank you for your guidance, senior. After listening to your words, this junior is suddenly enlightened. Li Jingji waved his hand and said, Go. I have always been a competitive person. Although I admire your talent, if this is the 6th Great Temple ranking tournament, I definitely won't go easy on you. It's still too early for you to defeat me. In 5 years, there will be a new temple tournament, and I hope I won't see you on the tournament stage. In 15 years, perhaps it's time for you to truly shine. Long Haochen slowly stood up, and after bowing to Li Jingji again, he turned around and left. Li Jingji narrowed his eyes, and looked at Long Haochen's steady footsteps as he left. He thought to himself, Heaven's favored one. I hope he won't follow in the footsteps of his predecessors. Long Haochen really listened to Li Jingji's words. He was only 20 years old this year, and in the past 10 years, he had spent almost all his energy on training and fighting against the demons. He didn't know much about the internal affairs of the Alliance, and the relationship between the Alliance and the demons. After returning to the Alliance from the Dark Swamp, especially after he finished his seclusion, the leaders of the Alliance, such as Long Tianyin, Xing Yu, and Li Jingji, taught him many things that he didn't know before. Almost all of them were guiding him to the right path. Long Haochen's thinking also became more mature. Hey! Just as Li Jingji's words echoed in Long Haochen's mind, he heard a call. Long Haochen was startled and subconsciously looked up. Both he and the person who called out to him were stunned. The person who called him was naturally Li Jingji's direct disciple, Tan Wan. At this time, Long Haochen had already stepped into the teleportation portal, and was about to leave. However, he met Tan Wan face to face. In that moment of shock, he realized his mistake. Because Li Jingji's words had brought him too many things, he forgot to put on his golden foundation armor and walk out. He just happened to meet Tan Wan face to face. Tan Wan's shock was obvious, because of Long Haochen's appearance. You're the one just now? Tan Wan looked at Long Haochen's young and handsome face, her eyes filled with disbelief. In Li Jingji's office, there were only Li Jingji and the acting Holy Knight. At this time, a stranger that she didn't know walked out, and it was obvious that he wasn't her teacher. Naturally, it was the acting Holy Knight. As the direct disciple of the Mage Temple Master Li Jingji, and with her beautiful appearance, Tan Wan was the dream lover of almost all the young mages in the Mage Temple. There were too many young men who had fawned over her, but she was completely sure that the person in front of her was absolutely unparalleled in terms of appearance. For the first time, she realized that a man could be so good-looking. Whether it was his figure or his appearance, she couldn't find a single flaw on Long Houchen. Even with her pride in appearance, she actually felt a sense of inferiority. Moreover, he looked even younger than she did. Long Houchen's reaction in the next moment gave Tan Wan a definite answer. After realizing his mistake, he immediately released the golden foundation armor. Tan Wan watched as the shining orange golden armor quickly covered Long Houchen's body, and the golden mask once again covered his face. "It's really you?" After a moment of sluggishness, Tan Wan's delicate face was filled with shock. Long Houchen nodded at her, stepped into the teleportation portal, and was teleported away in the next moment. Looking at the gradually fading figure, Tan Wan's footsteps paused for a moment, and she immediately sprinted towards Li Jingji's office. Women's curiosity was stronger than men's, and this shock was beyond her comprehension. On the second floor of the Mage Temple, Long Houchen was shocked as soon as he arrived. This was because he saw Kai Er in someone's arms. When he took a closer look, intense surprise filled his body. He quickly took 2 steps forward and shouted, "Sister, it's Lin Xian." The person who was hugging Kai Er was Lin Xian, whom Long Houchen hadn't seen for a long time. Meanwhile, Lin Xian, whose dark green hair had grown back, was standing at the side, holding Han Yu's right hand with an excited look on his face. As it turned out, when Long Houchen was summoned by the Mage Temple's master Li Jingji, Lin Xian was also notified by Elder Fei. When he heard that it was someone from his team, and that there was a knight on a golden pedestal, he vaguely guessed who it was. No one was more confident in Long Houchen's strength than Lin Xian. He was almost sure that the knight on a golden pedestal was Long Houchen. Overjoyed, he immediately found Lin Xian and rushed over as fast as he could. In the corridor, he met Kai Er and Han Yu, who were waiting for Long Houchen's return. Lin Xian had long heard about Kai Er's amnesia. She pitied Kai Er and hugged her with tears in her eyes. Lin Xian and Han Yu also held their right hands tightly. It had been almost 2 years. The joy of reunion between the brothers couldn't be described with words. Before they could say anything, Long Houchen came back. Lin Xian let go of Han Yu's hand and shouted, "Boss." He quickly rushed forward and gave Long Houchen a big hug. Everyone was so excited that they almost couldn't control themselves. Although Long Houchen was wearing the golden foundation armor, when had his voice ever changed? Long Houchen. Lin Xian let go of Kai Er and quickly walked forward with a face full of surprise. Even with her strong character, tears still rolled down her face. After letting go of Lin Xian's hug, Long Houchen hugged Lin Xian tightly again. The surging emotions made Long Houchen choke and unable to speak. After a while, everyone's emotions calmed down a little. Long Houchen said, "Come, let's talk in the room." The 5 of them walked into Long Houchen's room and closed the door. Long Houchen almost couldn't wait to take off the golden foundation armor on his body. In front of his sister and brother, how could he be willing to be separated by this layer of metal? At this time, he could calm down and observe Lin Xian and Lin Xian. Compared to before they parted, Lin Xian seemed to have matured a bit, and her figure was even more fiery and sexy. Her long pink hair was neatly combed behind her head, and her gaze was focused. It was obvious that her cultivation had improved greatly. Compared to Lin Xian, Lin Xian's change was even greater. Before they parted, Lin Xian gave people the impression that he was somewhat cynical. But now, although his appearance did not change much, he gave people the impression that he was a lot more resolute. He already had a bit of a dignified aura. In the past, he had never been associated with the word calm, but now he could be used to describe him. This was especially true for his gaze, which was focused and resolute. It was no longer as erratic as before. It was as if he had grown up after not seeing him for 2 years. If not for his appearance, Long Houchen wouldn't have been able to recognize him. Needless to ask, Long Houchen could imagine that Lin Xian must have experienced many things in these 2 years. "Lin Xian, it's been hard on you these 2 years," Long Houchen said sincerely. His words were not without reason. For the General Class Monster Hunt 64, the one who contributed the most in these 2 years was Lin Xian. The pills he refined had greatly improved the external spiritual power of everyone in the General Class Monster Hunt 64. Moreover, he had provided everyone with many life-saving pills. As for the leader, Long Houchen, he did not do much. He only cultivated in seclusion. Hearing Long Houchen's words, Lin Xian's expression changed. He suddenly stood up and stood in front of Long Houchen like a child who had done something wrong. Leader, don't say that. I did what I should. But, Lin Xian, who was at the side, suddenly said, All right, let bygones be bygones. It wasn't easy for everyone to reunite. Why are you saying this? Lin Xian turned his head to look at Lin Xian. What surprised Long Houchen was that Lin Xian, who had always been obedient to Lin Xian, firmly shook his head. Xianair, I must say it. If boss doesn't know about this, I will never be able to untie this knot in my heart. Long Houchen realized the seriousness of the situation. He asked doubtfully, What happened? What happened? Lin Xian lowered his head and said, I didn't protect Xianair well. Her arm was cut off by the enemy during the Holy War. What? Long Houchen stood up in shock. His eyes suddenly became fierce. To him, Lin Xian was no less than his biological sister. Back in Haoyue City, Lin Xian's meticulous care for him was his spiritual support after his parents left. Long Houchen's affection for Lin Xian would never weaken. Lin Xian hurriedly stood up and said, It's all in the past. Didn't I reattach my arm? For my sake, Lin Xian has suffered many hardships over the past year. Long Houchen, don't blame him. It wasn't his fault at all. As she spoke, she took the initiative to walk to Lin Xian's side. She hugged his right arm and snuggled up to him. Her eyes were full of tenderness. Looking at them, Long Houchen suddenly understood something. Lin Xian's face was full of guilt. His eyes were red. Lin Xian's face was full of tenderness and happiness. It was obvious that the relationship between them had taken a qualitative leap. Lin Xian, what happened? Tell me in detail. I also heard that you are now the leader of the Magic Temple's mage squad. Just as Lin Xian was about to speak, Lin Xian spoke first. Let me say it. You have to listen to him. He'll definitely take on everything. He's such a person. He's too stubborn. How can there be no deaths or injuries in war? Back then, he was refining pills in the temple, and I was participating in the defense of Jialing Pass. In one battle, my arm was cut off by the enemy. Later, although it was reattached, it wasn't very flexible. Lin Xian seemed to have gone mad. He insisted that he didn't protect me well. Then, he changed. He broke his oath and began to practice offensive magic. At the same time, he developed all kinds of pills to heal my arm. Now, my arm has been completely healed. After he practiced offensive magic, his ability increased greatly. At the same time, he joined the battlefield. Because of his outstanding performance on the battlefield and the rapid increase in his strength, he was recognized by the upper echelons of the Magic Temple. He accumulated military merits and was promoted to the position of Mage Squad leader. Hearing Lin Xian say this, both Long Houchen and Han Yu were shocked. Han Yu said, You actually learned offensive magic? Lin Xian's narration was very simple, as if an outsider was describing a very ordinary thing. But with Long Houchen's understanding of Lin Xian, he could deeply feel the strong impact of Lin Xian's broken arm on Lin Xian. One must know that the reason why Lin Xian swore not to learn offensive magic was because his parents died in the research of magic. One could imagine the impact of this shadow on him. And because of Lin Xian's injury, Lin Xian actually walked out of this shadow. In order to protect Lin Xian, he learned offensive magic. At this moment, Long Houchen was finally relieved. The once unreliable mage who didn't know how to attack had finally grown up and could really protect his sister. Taking a step forward, Long Houchen stood in front of Lin Xian. Looking at Long Houchen's clear eyes, Lin Xian's heartbeat suddenly sped up. Anyone could see the anxiety in his heart. Lin Xian was about to say something, but Long Houchen raised his hand to stop her. Raising both hands, Long Houchen grabbed Lin Xian's shoulders. "Brother, good job. You've worked hard these days." Lin Xian was stunned. He had thought countless times about how the leader would treat him after reuniting with Long Houchen, but he had never received such an answer. In an instant, tears filled his eyes. In these 2 years, he had really put in too much. His craziness in magic training made even Tan Wan, who was known as the #1 genius of the younger generation in the Magic Temple, feel inferior. He trained almost crazily, but he still had to make time to research medicine for Lin Xian. Every day, his real rest time was less than 4 hours. Only in the process of crazily and stubbornly cultivating could he alleviate the pain and guilt in his heart to some extent. There were a few times when he had experienced the most dangerous elemental backlash because of excessive training, but even so, he had forcefully endured it. At this moment, although Long Houchen only said a simple sentence, it made Lin Xian feel that all his efforts were worth it. The leader didn't blame him. "Boss!" In the instant that the huge pressure in his heart was finally released, Lin Xian's somewhat closed heart finally opened up completely. He cried bitterly, and the emotions that he had been suppressing finally burst out like a mountain torrent. Han Yu wanted to step forward to comfort him, but was stopped by Lin Xian. She was the clearest about Lin Xian's current mental state. The knot in his heart had finally been released, and it was definitely better to let him cry than to keep it in his heart. Lin Xian's emotional release lasted for almost a quarter of an hour before he gradually calmed down. Although his eyes were red and swollen from crying, his gaze was clearly much gentler. His tense heartstrings finally relaxed, and the huge psychological pressure was gone. However, the intense feeling of fatigue caused him to directly fall asleep in Lin Xian's arms. These days, he had given himself too much pressure. After letting it all out, he needed a good rest to truly let his body and mind return to normal. 2 days later, at Jiaoling Pass. What did the Magic Temple rely on to defend Jiaoling Pass? Without a doubt, it was the magicians. In the Magic Temple, there were a total of 10 regular magician groups. Each group had 500 people, and all of them were magicians with a cultivation of grade 5 and above. As for magicians with a cultivation of less than grade 5, they could only be the reserve force, and were not allowed to enter the battlefield. This was the Magic Temple's protection for low-level magicians. After all, nurturing a magician was not as easy as nurturing a warrior. Every magician was the Magic Temple's most valuable asset. Perhaps, among those low-level magicians, there might be another one like Li Jingji in the future. Other than the 10 regular magician groups, there were also a few more stronger groups of magicians, led by the Magic Temple's powerhouses. Every regular magician group had a single element. This was because this was the only way that there would be no elemental conflict during the battle. The reason why Lin Xian was chosen as the leader of the magician group was not because he was the strongest, but because the magician group was also known as the Burning Legion, and was made up of all magicians with the fire element. Chapter 194. Boss, these are my brothers. Lin Xian proudly pointed at the 500 magicians on the walls of Jiaoling Pass, all wearing fiery red robes. After 2 days of rest, Lin Xian's physical condition had finally returned to normal. After untangling the knot in his heart and venting his emotions, his mental energy seemed to have improved to a certain extent. As the leader of the #1 sorcerer squad, he definitely could not rest for long. Once his mental energy recovered, he immediately returned to his post. Long Houchen and the rest had been here for a few days. Apart from Li Jingji's summon, They did not receive any orders or requests from the magic temple. In other words, they were completely free men. Lin Xian was still the leader of the number 1 sorcerer squad. Under his warm invitation, Long Haochen and the rest followed him and Lin Xian to the Jialing Pass. With Lin Xian's current status in the Jialing Pass, it was naturally very easy for him to help them obtain identification. At the top of the Jialing Pass, the guards at the front were all tall, muscular, and heavily armored warriors. These warriors were almost all reinforcements from the warrior temple. Behind the warriors were all mages. The number of mages on the Jialing Pass was enough to shock anyone. Long Haochen saw at least 2,000 mages on the Jialing Pass. Furthermore, according to their different attributes, they belonged to different squads of mages, and the colors of their robes were also distinct. Looking into the distance from the top of the city wall, one could see 8 demon god pillars standing in the middle of the demon race's camp, like 7 stars surrounding the moon. The demon god pillar in the center was particularly huge, and a thick purple-black light constantly rose from this demon god pillar. One could faintly see a ferocious face in that purple-black light. The demon god of hell, Marbas, was the 5th demon god of the demons. The demon god of necromancy, Samikina, was stationed outside the dragon-resisting pass, while the demon god of hell, Marbas, was here. This showed how much importance the demons placed on the Jialing Pass. Since the start of the Holy War, the Jialing Pass had the fewest casualties. Not only were there few casualties for the humans but the demons too, because most of the time it was a battle between the magicians of both sides. No one could easily break through the other's defensive barrier. In terms of the overall strength of the mages, Jialing Pass was not inferior to their opponents at all, not to mention that they had the terrain and formations to rely on. Marbas had even personally fought a few times, but he was unable to gain any advantage and returned in failure every time. The fire mages of the Mage Squad 1 looked curiously at Long Haochen and the others. Long Haochen was undoubtedly the most eye-catching in his golden foundation armor. However, they were very disciplined and there was no sound of discussion. Lin Xian lowered his voice and asked Long Haochen, "Boss, when are we leaving?" "Let's go to the southeastern fortress and look for Yuan Yuan." The warrior's temple was located further south from Jialing Pass. After reuniting with Long Haochen, Lin Xian was even more eager to meet up with his companions. Long Haochen smiled and said, "There's no hurry. Since we have come to Jialing Pass, we should contribute to Jialing Pass. Let's talk about it after a few battles. Let's see if we can contribute to Jialing Pass." Of course, there was another reason why he decided to stay for the time being. The words of Long Tianin and Li Jingji made him deeply understand the importance of the true integration of the 6 temples, and they had pinned their hopes on Long Haochen. In order to truly integrate the 6 temples, he first had to understand the 6 temples. And the battlefield was obviously the best place to understand. "Our Jialing Pass is impregnable, we don't need an outsider like you to do anything." A cold voice sounded from not far away. Long Haochen and the others turned their heads and saw a man and a woman surrounded by dozens of magicians walking over. It was Xianyuan Yen and Tan Wan. Tan Wan walked in the front, and Xianyuan Yen was slightly behind her. Both of them were fully equipped with magician equipment, and there was a faint, strong magical wave blooming from their bodies. Seeing them, Lin Xian was stunned at first, and then he was enraged by their words. He stepped forward and shouted coldly, "What did you say?" Seeing Lin Xian, Xianyuan Yen obviously showed a trace of jealousy, but Tan Wan's expression was a little strange. She quickly glanced at Lin Xian, who was beside Lin Xian, and said coldly, "The defense of Jialing Pass does not need outsiders. Lin Xian, as the leader of the 1st Magician Regiment, you actually brought outsiders to the city without permission. I will impeach you to the temple for this matter." Lin Xian frowned and looked at Tan Wan with a somewhat complicated gaze. "Sister Meatball, why are you doing this?" When he called her Sister Meatball, Tan Wan's body visibly trembled, but she quickly suppressed her emotions. Leader Lin, please behave yourself. I am the leader of the Storm Legion, not your sister. I order you to let these people go down the city immediately, or else don't blame me for being rude. The Storm Legion did not belong to the 10 regular magician regiments, but a magician regiment directly under the temple master of the magic temple, Li Jingji. After Tan Wan's cultivation broke through to the 7th rank, Li Jingji handed over this magician regiment, which was made up of wind magicians above the 7th rank, to her command. In terms of status, the Storm Legion was obviously higher than the 10 regular magicians, so it was not wrong to say that Tan Wan was Lin Xian's superior. Lin Xian's face alternated between red and white, but facing Tan Wan, it was obvious that he could not vent his anger. Long Haochen patted him on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Forget it, Lin Xian. Since Jialing Pass does not need our help, we will go down first." After saying that, he called out to Kai and Han Yu, turned around and walked down the city. "Wait a minute," Tan Wan suddenly said. Long Haochen turned around. "Is Leader Tan Wan calling me?" Tan Wan nodded, and her eyes revealed a fierce look. She said in a deep voice, "Acting Holy Knight Leader has come to Jialing Pass. I wonder if I can ask Holy Knight Leader to give me some pointers and compare notes." "I will compare notes with you." Without waiting for Long Haochen to speak, Kai could not bear it anymore, and a tyrannical murderous intent swept out from her body. Long Haochen endured again and again, but she could not. The other party's repeated aggressiveness had already aroused the anger in Kai-er's heart. In front of the tyrannical murderous intent emitted by Kai-er, the group of magicians could not help but change their expressions. Except for Tan Wan and Xianyuan Yen, the magicians behind them all took a few steps back, hurriedly urging their spiritual power to barely resist the invasion of the murderous intent. Tan Wan and Xianyuan Yan's expressions also changed. Xianyuan Yan had seen Kai-er's ability when she broke the seal, so it was a little better. However, Tan Wan was secretly shocked. The murderous intent on Kai-er's body was condensed, overbearing, and peerless. But before she displayed it, there was no trace of murderous intent. This cultivation cannot be underestimated. Long Haochen pressed down on Kai-er's shoulder. "Forget it, the 6 great temples are one family. Our strength should be vented on the enemy, not internal strife. Let's go." Saying that, he pulled Kai-er and turned to go down the city. Lin Xian looked deeply at Tan Wan, then chased after Long Haochen and the others. Lin Xian couldn't help but clench his fist. Looking at Tan Wan, his expression changed. At the side, Xianyuan Yen sneered, "Lin Xian, don't let something like this happen again in the future. Otherwise, we will impeach you from above." "Scram, do you have the right to speak here?" Lin Xian's suppressed anger was almost instantly ignited. He could not do anything to Tan Wan, but he did not fear Xianyuan Yen. "You!" Xianyuan Yen did not have a good temper. Being scolded by Lin Xian, he immediately became angry. The white staff in his hand pointed, and a golden arrow of light shot towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian's eyes revealed a trace of disdain. A blue light flashed in his eyes, and a layer of water-like ripples appeared in front of him. When the arrow of light was still 2 meters away from him, it was directly disintegrated into elements. Immediately after, a loud and clear phoenix cry suddenly rose from Lin Xian's body. Strong blue flames burst out from his body like a volcano, causing the surrounding air to rise rapidly. The flames faintly condensed into the shape of a phoenix above Lin Xian's head, facing Xianyuan Yen. In his eyes, a tyrannical killing intent was also revealed. From the looks of it, he really wanted to kill. "Enough, stop!" Tan Wan shouted angrily. She moved and stood between the two of them. Then, she turned to Xianyuan Yen and shouted, "Let's go." Saying that, she turned and left. Needless to say, whether it was Xianyuan Yen or Lin Xian, neither of them could do anything to Tan Wan. Xianyuan Yen looked deeply at the rising flames on Lin Xian's body, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. With an angry snort, he turned and left. The blue flames slowly disappeared, and Lin Xian hatefully slapped the air, causing sparks to fly. On the other side, Lin Xian followed Long Haochen and the others down the city. Haochen. Sis, I'm fine. Long Haochen naturally understood that Lin Xian was trying to comfort him. Lin Xian sighed and said, speaking of which, Lin Xian is also in a difficult position. The conflict between him, Tan Wan, and Xianyuan Yen has a lot to do with me. Long Haochen looked curiously and said, I see that Lin Xian seems to be very respectful towards Tan Wan, but Tan Wan is targeting him. 2 days ago, Long Haochen had just met Palace Master Li Jingji, who was also the acting Holy Knight of the Knights Templars. With Tan Wan's status in the Magic Temple, no matter what, she should not be so impolite to him. Long Haochen had noticed that when Tan Wan spoke to them, her gaze was always on Lin Xian. That anger clearly had a lot to do with Lin Xian. It was more like they were the victims of her anger. Lin Xian said, this matter is also caused by a misunderstanding. When Lin Xian was young, he lived in Jiaoling Pass. Tan Wan was a few years older than him, so he always called her sister Meatball. When he was young, Tan Wan always took good care of him and treated him very well. Lin Xian lost his parents when he was young, so he was very attached to Tan Wan. As he grew older, family love gradually turned into other feelings. But there was a difference in age between the two, and Lin Xian swore not to practice offensive magic. Tan Wan tried to persuade him many times, but he still insisted. Later, Lin Xian's grandfather wanted to be transferred to the Holy City. Originally, Lin Xian didn't plan to go with his grandfather, but Tan Wan and Xianyuan Yan's engagement made him very sad. He left a letter for Tan Wan and went to the Holy City with his grandfather. We haven't contacted each other for a long time. In that letter, Lin Xian expressed his feelings for Tan Wan, and it could be considered a kind of catharsis. After coming to the Holy City, he devoted himself to the research of potionology, and gradually let go of this feeling. Later, he got together with Yu and became a demon hunter. But what he didn't know was that after Tan Wan read his letter, she also discovered the feelings in her heart. She also liked Lin Xian. So, she asked Palace Master Li Jingji to come forward and annul the engagement. But because this matter was too sensitive, Palace Master Li Jingji let her cultivate in seclusion. On one hand, it was for her cultivation, and on the other hand, it was to prevent her from being in the eye of the storm. When Tan Wan finished her seclusion and wanted to find Lin Xian had already become a demon hunter and followed Yu to carry out a mission. Thus, the matter was delayed. When they met again in Jiaoling Pass, Lin Xian was already with me. Listening to Lin Xian's narration, Long Haochen and the other two looked at each other. Han Yu had a strange expression on his face as he said, "Is this hatred born from love?" Lin Xian smiled bitterly and said, "You can say that. So, I felt that Tan Wan was quite pitiful. No matter what she did, Lin Xian and I tried our best to endure it. Originally, when we returned to Jiaoling Pass, everyone knew that it was a misunderstanding. After all, when Lin Xian and I got together, he thought that she was already married to Xianyuan Yen. It was hard to say who was right and who was wrong. It could only be considered a freak accident. In the beginning, Tan Wan's attitude towards us was still considered good. But, after Lin Xian decided to cultivate offensive magic for me, Tan Wan's attitude took a sharp turn for the worse, and she targeted him in all aspects. Moreover, she also seemed to think that her inability to be with Lin Xian had something to do with him joining Monster Hunters. You are all teammates in the same team as Lin Xian. Her attitude just now should be because of this matter." Han Yu smiled bitterly and said, "So it turns out that this is an undeserved calamity." Long Haochen said, That Tan Wan's emotions were stimulated, it's also quite pitiful. I hope that there will be a chance to resolve this matter in the future. Lin Xian said, I'm afraid it will be very difficult. The knot in her heart is deep, unless I withdraw. But Lin Xian has done so much for me, I have already. Speaking up to here, this valiant female knight couldn't help but blush. After going through so many things, how could she not be deeply in love with Lin Xian? A man could give up so many years of persistence for a woman, how could she not be moved by this deep friendship? Right at this moment, suddenly, a sharp and long cry resounded in Jialing Pass. The atmosphere of the whole impregnable pass instantly became tense. Lin Xian's expression changed. The demons are attacking the city. I have to go back to help Lin Xian. Long Haochen, you guys go back to the temple to rest first. Long Haochen said in a deep voice, fighting against the demons is everyone's responsibility. Let's go, we will go up again. I believe that Tan Wan will also be guarding her post, and won't be able to care about us. As he spoke, he was already leading the way up the city wall. He didn't give up fighting against the demons, just because of the Holy Knight's face. Lin Xian couldn't help but secretly praise Long Haochen's determination. Meeting again, her brother had become more mature than before. When everyone reascended to the top of the Jialing Pass, they immediately felt a strong elemental fluctuation. This elemental fluctuation was not emitted by the mages, but came from Jialing Pass itself. Long Haochen clearly saw that on the ground of the city wall, every 50 meters, a circular magic circle with a diameter of 3 meters lit up. This magic circle was milky white, and the soft elemental fluctuation emitted a faint white halo from the ground, spreading to every corner of the city. Long Haochen sensed that these magic circles actually had the effect of gathering mana. Stepping in the magic circle, the speed of absorbing magical elements increased by at least 10%. Moreover, these magic circles seemed to have no attribute restrictions, and any element had the effect of increasing the condensation. Looking from a distance, outside Jialing Pass, the sky was covered with dark clouds, and the 8 demon god pillars in the distance exuded a strong dark aura. The demon army's advancement speed was not fast at all, but layers of dark aura could be seen constantly surging from within the demon army and injected into the dark clouds in the sky. The core of the dark clouds was the demon god pillars of hell, and this was the joint casting of the hell demons. Although the distance was still far, there was already a strong pressure rushing in the direction of the city wall. The air outside Jialing Pass also began to distort and ripple, which was the beginning of the enchantment. The reason why Long Haochen and the others were able to break through the barrier was because Kair used her death god's scythe to break through the surface, only tearing a very small crack. Moreover, they were able to enter the inside of the barrier in an instant. However, this kind of large-scale collision was another situation. With the obstruction of the enchantment, not a trace of dark aura overflowed into Jialing Pass. On the city wall, a large number of magical elements had begun to shine, mainly concentrating on the 5 attributes of water, fire, earth, wind, and light. Among the 10 standing legions of Jialing Pass, 5 were on duty on the city wall, and together with the soldiers in front of them, they had occupied the entire Jialing Pass. Long Haochen and the others quickly came to Lin Xian's side, and at this time, Lin Xian had already begun to command the mages to chant a spell. They were chanting a grade 5 spell, which was specially used to compress their own spiritual power. The demons were still far away, and had not yet reached the range of their magic. A mage's magic was limited by the distance, and could only exert its greatest power within a certain distance. The stronger the mage, the further the distance. Long Haochen realized that these mages stood together in groups of 6, forming a magic hexagram. Along with the chanting of the spell, they raised the staff in their hands at the same time, and the elements of the same attribute gathered between them, quickly condensing spiritual power. Joint casting. With Long Haochen's sensitivity to the elements, He could feel that this joint casting was not only to enhance the power of the magic, but also to increase the attack range of the magic. This must have been specially researched by the magic temple, as expected of a powerful temple that was comparable to the Knights Templars. Lin Xian did not participate in these magic arrays, and when he saw Long Houchen and the others return to his side, he was immediately overjoyed. Boss, Lin Xian was about to say something, but he was interrupted by Long Houchen. Let's face the enemy with all our strength first. We'll all listen to your command. Okay. After 2 years of training, Lin Xian was also very different from before, and his dependence on Long Houchen was significantly reduced. Although the demon army was advancing slowly, it gave people a feeling that it was as solid as a rock. With every step forward, the formation became more stable. The black airflow in the sky gradually shrouded the demon army, and from the top of the city, it was gradually impossible to see their appearance. The fluctuations of the magical elements on Jialing Pass were also becoming more and more intense, like an extremely powerful ancient demonic beast that could spit out its strongest attack at any time. The pressure produced by both sides was extremely terrifying. Whether it was the humans or the demons, they were all waiting for the moment to reach the critical point, which was the intersection point of the two sides' attack range. If one looked down from a distance, they could see that the colors of both sides were clearly distinguished. On the side of the demons, it was black with a hint of purple, and on Jialing Pass, there was a colorful halo. Even a Type 9 powerhouse would feel small and insignificant when facing such a powerful might. Lin Xian stood beside Long Houchen and said in a low voice, "The first round of collision is the most intense. It is a collision where both sides accumulate all their strength, but it will not cause any casualties. But neither side dares to be careless and has to go all out. Otherwise, if the opponent has the advantage, they will be completely suppressed. After the first round of collision, the demons will start to attack the city, and that is when the war will really begin. My flame of heart is a bit special, and I can't cast spells together with them. When the enemy attacks the city, I will start to attack." Long Houchen said, "If I cast support magic, will it affect their joint casting?" Lin Xian thought for a moment and said, "Let's wait until the demons attack the city. I am worried that after the joint casting is affected, there will be unnecessary fluctuations. Moreover, with the strength of our brothers, it will not be a problem to withstand the attack of the demons." Lin Xian's caution was reasonable. Although he had more confidence in Long Houchen than anyone else, it was better not to take unnecessary risk. After the start of the Holy War, Jialing Pass and the demons had fought many times, and each time, the demons did not gain the upper hand. In other words, even without Long Houchen's help, they could still withstand the enemy's attack. In that case, why let Long Houchen take the risk? If it had the opposite effect, wouldn't it ruin the boss's reputation? Long Houchen nodded slightly. He had never cooperated with so many mages, especially when these mages were in a joint casting situation, so he did not have absolute confidence. From Lin Xian's words, he could also hear that the magic temple was very confident. In that case, why should he take the risk? The strong elemental fluctuations became more and more intense, and the demon army in the distance suddenly accelerated without warning. In the sky, a strong purple-black light surged violently, and in the process of surging, it gradually gathered into a hideous demon head. Something's not right. Lin Xian's expression changed slightly. Compared with the previous attacks of the demons, this time the demons seemed to have launched a little earlier. At this moment, the huge demon head slowly raised, and from its mouth, a purple-black light pillar rose into the sky. Then, 7 other light pillars of different colors, but all with black light, shot out like lightning. The momentum of the 7 stars accompanying the moon was completely presented in mid-air. The cold chanting could be heard clearly even from the top of Jialing Pass. The black light emitted from the 8 demon god pillars all condensed together, making the demon head more solid. It was like a real demon from hell that had really awakened, and it brazenly rushed toward the top of Jiaoling Pass. Forbidden Spell. The forbidden spell released by the 8 demon gods together. As the skull flew forward, the dark clouds from before became its tail flame, and in the process of its rapid flight, it continued to merge inwards. Forbidden Spell. Lin Xian blurted out, and at the same time, his expression changed drastically. He immediately ordered, "Concentrate the attack. Don't let it get close." The demon's sudden change of move had obviously caught Jiaoling Pass off guard. Moreover, it seemed that this change of move was launched by the 7 demon gods led by the demon god of hell, Marbus, and all the mages of the demons. The ferocious demon head gave off a feeling of desperation. The power of this attack was definitely not comparable to an ordinary forbidden spell. The moment it appeared in the air, most of the mages on the top of Jiaoling Pass felt their blood freeze. Even the seal that guarded Jiaoling Pass could not bring them any sense of security. All of this happened too suddenly. It seemed that it only took the 8 demon gods of the demons a very short time to complete the whole incantation. The sudden outbreak made it a little too late for Jiaoling Pass to react. The commanders of the various mages on the wall were also battle-hardened. Like Lin Xian, they all reacted immediately. On the top of the wall, a large number of magic lights erupted rapidly, like a storm, shooting toward the terrifying forbidden spell in the air. "Han Yu, help me!" Long Haochen shouted to Han Yu, who was next to him, and directly sat cross-legged on the ground. Fine, low sounds of incantation sounded from his mouth, with a strange rhythm and scale, echoing in a very small area. With the improvement of his cultivation, Long Haochen's vision was also much higher than before. The moment the demon head appeared, he clearly judged that the power of the mages on Jiaoling Pass would definitely not be able to withstand it. Of course, he also could not withstand it. However, he still had to do his best. Even if it was just to delay for a period of time, it could buy some time for Jiaoling Pass to resolve this fatal attack. Han Yu sat cross-legged behind Long Haochen, his hands pressed on Long Haochen's back. He and Long Haochen had a retainer contract, so it was much easier for them to transfer spiritual power to each other. Even without Lin Xian's conjoined panacea pill, he could achieve the corresponding effect. At the same time, he also opened his light blessing spiritual stove. This was the real reason why Long Haochen asked him to help. The orange radiance of the golden foundation battle armor became more and more intense, and pure light elements converged in Long Haochen's direction at an astonishing speed. In fact, what Long Haochen did not know was that the 8 demon gods' sudden and all-out attack was closely related to him. During this period of time, the demon god Samakina outside Dragon Resisting Pass had been seriously injured, and the demon army had been routed. Outside Exorcist Pass, Sidi had been injured, and the demon army had suffered heavy losses. 2 great strongholds had problems in succession, and the news had been reported to the Demon Emperor. The Demon Emperor's first reaction was that the humans were about to launch a counterattack. Although he did not believe that the humans had the ability to counterattack, the facts were in front of him. Although the Demon Emperor's goal was only to weaken the humans' strength, he was by no means a good person. The Temple League's resistance suddenly became stronger, and the Demon Emperor immediately issued orders to the other 4 great demon army outside the strongholds to put pressure on the Temple League. They must suppress their thoughts of counterattack, and weaken their strength as much as possible. When Long Haochen and the others arrived at Jiaoling Pass, the demon god Marbus had also just received this order. After 2 days of preparation, the 8 demon gods used the demon god pillar to store the forbidden curse incantations, and then launched the attack once again. Using the demon god pillar to store the forbidden curse incantations could be extracted at any time, and there was no need to chant for a long time. However, this would also greatly consume the spiritual power contained in the demon god pillar, so the demon gods normally would not use it lightly. This time, in order to deal a heavy blow to Jialing Pass, Marbus decided to attack like this. Under the effect of the suddenness, Jialing Pass was indeed caught unprepared. The first to attack was the Wind Mage team in the distance. Wind magic was the fastest, be it incantation chanting or attack speed. In the air, the ear-piercing screeches made Long Houchen and the others feel as though they were back in the cave of Dread Howl. Huge green spears with tornadoes spiraling around them headed straight for the devil's head. Nearly 100 streaks of green light struck the terrifying black forbidden spell in a rhythmic manner. When they got close, the light in front of the demon head suddenly became distorted, and a large number of tornadoes were directly swept away by the distorted light. Only a few of them hit the true body of the forbidden curse. However, it only slowed down the speed of the forbidden curse a little. The second to attack was the Earth Mage. In the sky, countless stones the size of millstones fell from the sky, like a torrent crashing into the pitch-black forbidden curse. Needless to say, the effect of earth magic was indeed much stronger than wind magic in this situation. Although a portion of the stones slid away, most of the falling stones still hit the forbidden curse, causing its speed to be slowed down again. However, if one observed closely, they would notice that when the stones hit the demon head, they would quickly dissolve and disappear. It only slowed down the speed of the forbidden curse, but did not weaken its power by much. After the earth was water, or more accurately, ice. Rays of blue light interweaved and condensed in the air. In the end, they actually condensed together and turned into an ice ball that was much bigger than the demon head, brazenly crashing into it. The collision was short, and there was no violent explosion. Looking from the top of the Jialing Pass, one could see that the huge ice ball was actually melting from the center at a shocking speed, turning into countless pitch-black raindrops that fell from the sky and made sizzling sounds when they landed on the ground. Finally, it was fire. The mages under Lin Xian's command split into groups of 6, and dozens of huge, exploding fireballs flew towards the demon head like a meteor shower under the amplification of the spell formation on the wall. Ice and fire, two completely opposite elements, could often produce a miraculous effect when they intersected. The scorching heat after the cold could greatly damage the internal structure of the enemy's magic. Unfortunately, it seemed to be ineffective this time. The exploding fireballs caused the black forbidden curse to shine brightly, showing the violence of the fire element. However, the black demon head withstood all of them. After experiencing the impact of the 4 elements, its size only decreased by 1/5. In other words, almost 2,000 mages working together could only reduce its attack power by 1/5. If such a terrifying forbidden curse were to fall on the Jialing Pass, the consequences would be unimaginable. The demon god of hell Marbus looked coldly at the Jialing Pass in the distance. At this moment, the black flames that followed behind the demon head had completely merged into its body. I want to see how you are going to resist my forbidden curse. Hell's Descent Forbidden Curse. Samakina was actually injured by a human's attack. It was said that it was very serious, and even his domain was almost broken. Very well, let me take revenge for you. Marbus and Samakina had a very good relationship, and the demons and hell demons had the closest relationship. The 2 demons together could faintly fight against the moon devils and star demons, who had fewer numbers. It was clear that it was very powerful. The super forbidden curse that he used at this moment was based on his own proficiency in Hell's Descent, and it was cast with the power of the other 7 demon gods and his people. Its power was so great that even he couldn't estimate it. Today, he didn't think of attacking more. As long as this attack could destroy the front wall of the Jialing Pass, after the demon god pillars recovered, how long could the Jialing Pass stop them after losing its natural barrier? If he could destroy the magic temple, it would definitely be the heaviest blow to the Temple League. Bang! At this moment, Hell's Descent and the seal of Jialing Pass fiercely collided. After 4 rounds of magic, the power of Hell's Descent was only slightly weakened. The moment it collided with the seal, the entire Jialing Pass trembled. The violently distorted light surged crazily, and the seal's power was fully displayed. Circles of white halos condensed in the direction of Hell's descent from all directions, trying to dissolve it. The demon head formed by Hell's descent became even more ferocious, frantically struggling to break through. It could be seen that at the center of contact between it and the seal, a hole had gradually formed. It looked like it was only a matter of time before it broke through. At this moment, dozens of dazzling golden light pillars shot out from another direction of Jiaoling Pass. Their target was the hole formed by Hell's descent. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian couldn't help but be slightly surprised and looked in the direction of the golden light. Although he hated Xianyuan Yen, he had to admit that this guy was very good at commanding his light mage group. He had been patiently waiting for this opportunity until now. Light and darkness were two opposite elemental attributes. If they were to launch it in advance, they would definitely be like the other mage groups and have a portion of the attack slid away. However, at this moment, Hell's descent was clashing with the seal of Jiaoling Pass, and the hole formed was its core position. Launching an attack from this position made it impossible for this tyrannical forbidden spell to dodge. Moreover, all the light magic that could be used against it were all released at its core position, reducing the power of Hell's descent to the greatest extent. As expected, under the impact of the golden light, one could clearly see that the power of Hell's descent was greatly reduced. The combined attack of 500 light mages completely weakened its power. Chapter 195. Xianyuan Yen pointed his staff forward and heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the power of Hell's descent was starting to decrease. The attack was effective. The light magicians behind him didn't need his orders at all. They all poured out their spiritual power, hoping to cooperate with the seal to block Hell's descent outside. Their attack seemed to be very successful. Hell's descent's forbidden spell was shrinking at an alarming speed. However, in the distance, the demon god of Hell, Marbus, revealed a strange smile. If the forbidden spell launched by the 8 demon gods could be so easily blocked, then they wouldn't be worthy of their status. The size of Hell's descent quickly shrank to 1/10 of its original size under the strong impact of the light magic and the obstruction of the seal. At this moment, Xianyuan Yen couldn't help but look in Lin Xian's direction with a pleased expression. However, at this moment, the surroundings suddenly quietened down. All sound seemed to have been sucked away in an instant. Xianyuan Yen subconsciously turned his head to look in the opposite direction. He was horrified to see that the Hell's descent, which had shrunk to an extremely small size, was now frozen in its original position. Large patches of black net-like patterns spread out rapidly with it as the center, outlining the originally colorless seal of Jiaoling Pass. In the next instant, boom! A monstrous roar resounded, bringing with it an unparalleled ferocity. The devil's head once again exploded to its previous size, and the seal of Jiaoling Pass instantly shattered. Xianyuan Yen and the 500 light magicians behind him let out a muffled groan at the same time, and spat out a mouthful of blood. The shrinking of Hell's descent was for a more powerful explosion. The power of this forbidden spell was so terrifying that it already had a certain degree of intelligence. Xianyuan Yen and the others' attack was actually effective. Hell's descent had shrunk a little, but at this moment, who could block its attack? Without the protection of the seal, everyone on the walls of Jiaoling Pass felt as if they were stuck in a quagmire. The terrifying dark elements were sweeping over at an alarming speed. The green wind appeared once again. Compared to the wind magicians from before, the green wind looked even purer this time. Strong wind elements surged out from all directions, forming a huge tornado that connected the heavens and the earth, enveloping Hell's descent within it. The violent winds were actually trying to blow it high into the sky, using the power of the wind to madly exhaust the power of Hell's descent. The Storm Legion commanded by Tan Wan finally took action. The defense of Jiaoling Pass wasn't that easy to break through. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to defend the pass since the start of the Holy War. The Stormwind Legion's attack was even more tyrannical than the combined might of the 5 great legions. They were composed of wind mages of the 7th tier and above. Their first move was a powerful joint spell. The power of this tornado was already at the level of a forbidden spell. Clearly, they had been working together for a long time. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to cast a Tier 7 spell so easily in such a short time. As the tornado swept over, Hell's Descent shrank once again, trying to reduce its contact with the tornado as much as possible. It was as stable as a boulder, and no matter how the tornado attacked, it didn't budge. The confrontation between the two sides had reached its climax. The demons suddenly launched an attack, and Jiaoling Pass had already sent people to invite the most powerful magician corps and the higher-ups of the magic temple. However, it would still take some time for them to arrive and cast the spell. As long as the magicians on the walls could hold on until then, the demons' ambush would be in vain. 8 rays of black light suddenly appeared like 8 shocking rainbows. These 8 rays of light came from the 8 demon god pillars. They rushed into the tornado at an alarming speed and collided with Hell's Descent. With a shrill roar, Hell's Descent instantly tore apart the tornado surrounding it and flew towards the top of Jiaoling Pass, which was hundreds of meters away. If the 8 demon gods didn't attack, the Storm Legion could only stop Hell's Descent for a short period of time. However, Marbus knew that he couldn't wait any longer. If the Magic Temple's Magician Corps arrived, then even if Hell's Descent's attack eventually landed on Jiaoling Pass, the destructive effect would be far from what he had planned. On the walls of Jiaoling Pass, all the magicians could not help but be shocked. The entire top of the walls had already been covered in a layer of black. Everyone knew that as long as the forbidden spell landed on Jiaoling Pass, the walls of Jiaoling Pass would definitely be destroyed, and they would all become burial objects for Jiaoling Pass. From the moment the forbidden spell was launched to the moment it reached the top of Jiaoling Pass, everything happened in less than 10 seconds. Everyone felt the fear of being shrouded by death. A golden light suddenly shone without warning, just like the sudden light of dawn. Upon closer inspection, one would realize that the golden light was actually rainbow-colored. Under the strange golden light, a figure appeared and hovered in mid-air outside the top of Jiaoling Pass, blocking the path of Hell's Descent. A golden hexagram shone on his back, and a majestic unicorn that emitted intense golden light floated over, carrying his body. Golden mask, golden armor, and the pure aura of light of the King of Starlight Unicorns. Not only did he bring light to Jiaoling Pass, but he also brought hope. The rainbow-colored golden light shrouded his body, and layers of golden halos rose from the King of Starlight Unicorns, resonating with the rainbow-colored golden light. On the back of the unicorn, the knight put his palms together, and a clear incantation came from his mouth. Behind him, the rainbow-colored light condensed into a huge female shadow, also sitting with her palms together. Strangely enough, the fearsome and mighty Hell's Descent forbidden spell actually stopped right in front of him. Compared to the majestic aura of Hell's Descent, the Golden Knight was just a drop in the ocean. However, he actually stopped Hell's Descent, and could not rush up to Jiaoling Pass when it was so close. All the mages of Jiaoling Pass were stunned at this moment. Of course, they recognized that the golden armor Knight was wearing was the attire of the Knights Templars' adamantine knight. However, most of them didn't know why a knight would come here at this time and help them block this incomparably terrifying forbidden spell. A mere rank 8 knight could resist the super forbidden spell cast by the 8 demon gods and all the hell demons? Even if the Knight of the Seal was here, he might not be able to do it. Yes, Long Houchen could not do it. Even if he was already a rank 9, he could not block the power of the forbidden spell with his own strength. Even if the forbidden spell had been weakened by the magicians, he was not blocking it now, but restricting it. He used a special magic similar to Star Demon Vasak's Great Prophecy to restrict Hell's Descent. The pure light elements he released could not even weaken Hell's Descent, but at least, before his spiritual power was exhausted, the forbidden spell could not move forward. Prayer of Light. This magic had surpassed the scope of light magic. It should be called a holy magic. And the most proficient in holy magic was the temple of the priest, not the knight. It was also learned from the Cave of Illusion. There, Long Houchen learned the most about the Guardian Knight's skills, and the Prayer of Light was engraved in the innermost part of the cave. This holy magic was very difficult to grade. It had the same effect no matter what opponent it faced. Praying in exchange for peace. The ancestors of the Knights Templars who left this magic in the Cave of Illusion explained it as such. The Prayer of Light was the will of God and also the seal of God. Human power could never truly master this ability, but it could be borrowed with a price and a time limit. Pray with the most sincere attitude. The purer the heart, the more powerful the light of the Prayer of Light. This holy magic originated from the High Elves, so even the temple of the priests did not know how to use it. After thousands of years, this strange holy magic finally saw the light of day, and was used by Long Houchen. The moment Hell's Descent appeared, Long Houchen's powerful spiritual power faintly felt a strong sense of unease. At the same time, the incantation of the Prayer of Light also appeared in his mind. This was an instinct, and it was the judgment of light. Long Houchen did not doubt the guidance of light, so he immediately asked Han Yu for help and began to chant this magic. It turned out that his choice was right. No one was more suitable to cast this holy magic than him. Compared to the time when he cast Holy Rain, Long Houchen's consumption was much less. The whole process of casting the holy magic could be described as a matter of course. There was no pause or bottleneck, and the incantation was completed in one go. Han Yu's spiritual power was completely given to Long Houchen. In addition to the powerful recovery ability brought by the spiritual stove of light and the assistance of the adamantine base armor, Long Houchen still had a considerable amount of spiritual power left when he completed this magic. Yes, who else was more qualified to cast holy magic than the favored? The Prayer of Light was triggered by the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield, which was why everyone saw the colorful golden light. Long Houchen could deeply feel the power of the super-forbidden spell Hell's Descent. He was even more clear that the Prayer of Light that he cast with his own power was far from enough to stop it, so he had to rely on the power of the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield. After activating the power of the artifact last time, Long Houchen now had a higher degree of compatibility with the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield, and he also found some of the mysteries of activating the artifact's power. With his current level of cultivation, if he wanted to release the power of the Sun-Moon Divine Snail Shield, he would need to cast at least an attack of the level of a forbidden spell. It turned out that he had succeeded again. The Prayer of Light had sealed the Hell's Descent. The small golden light and the terrifying black light were in a stalemate in midair. Xianyuan Yen was stunned, and so was Tan Wan. Of course, they knew who the person who suddenly appeared and blocked the attack of the demons was. Not long ago, they chased him off the city wall. Not long ago, Tan Wan had challenged him to a duel. At this moment, Tan Wan's mood was indescribable. It was a strange feeling, but more than that, it was shock. Almost 3,000 mages working together could not stop the terrifying forbidden spell of the demons, but that person had done it with his own power. Tan Wan knew that Long Houchen must have had some tricks up his sleeve, and the situation would not last long. However, in the face of such a super-forbidden spell, to have the courage to stand in front of it was already something that ordinary people could not do. A feeling of shame appeared in Tan Wan and Xianyuan Yan's hearts at the same time. They were both saying the same thing to themselves. I actually wanted to challenge such a person just now? Tan Wan's mood was the most affected, because she had seen with her own eyes how young the knight on a golden pedestal, the acting Holy Knight of Knights Templars, was. Tan Wan deeply remembered when she rushed to her teacher and asked him, "Is he really as young as he looks?" Palace Master Li Jingji only nodded slightly, but Tan Wan was extremely shocked at that time. Rank 8, a knight who looked even younger than her had actually reached rank 8. He was also the leader of the monster hunters that Lin Xin was in, and the acting Holy Knight of Knights Templars. Was there really such a big gap between them? At this moment, in the face of this huge crisis, Long Houchen used his own power to prove to Tan Wan the gap between them. Continue to attack, what are you waiting for? Lin Xion's voice, which was triggered by spiritual power, rang through the entire Jialing Pass. Only then did the mages wake up from their daze. Passionate and high-pitched chants resounded from the top of Jialing Pass. Two figures flew out from the top of Jialing Pass almost at the same time, heading straight for where Long Houchen was. One on the left and one on the right, they stopped beside Long Houchen. Strangely enough, after being restrained by the light prayer, the aura of Hell's Descent was also restrained, so all the mages in Jialing Pass were no longer affected. The two people who flew out were Kair and Lin Xian. The Grim Reaper scythe had already appeared in Kair's hand. Her entire body was covered in a strange layer of gray. There was no killing intent flashing on her body, but her gray pupils stared coldly at the Hell's Descent in front of her. Once Long Houchen's light prayer could no longer continue, she would definitely replace Long Houchen to attack this powerful forbidden spell of darkness. On the other side, Lin Xian was completely different from Kair's preparation. As soon as he stopped beside Long Houchen, he released a fire magic attack that was more accurate and powerful than a textbook attack towards the forbidden spell of darkness. He pointed the fire crystal staff forward, and a huge fireball went straight for the Hell's Descent. Lin Xian clearly remembered that when Long Houchen flew up to block the forbidden spell, he said two words to him: attack. With the tacit understanding between Lin Xian and Long Houchen, when Long Houchen blocked the Hell's Descent and temporarily restrained it, Lin Xian understood what he meant. Long Houchen could only block it, but he could not solve it. But it could buy Jialing Pass some time. During this time, what they had to do was to weaken or even eliminate the power of Hell's Descent as much as possible. The first blue fireball had just flown out, and the second one had already appeared at the tip of the staff. It could be said that the instant release of a Grade 5 fireball was stored in a magic tool, but what about the second and third instant release? At this moment, the fire crystal staff in Lin Xian's hands seemed to have become a series of cannons, and huge dark blue fireballs flew towards Hell's Descent. Every fireball that landed on Hell's Descent would let out an intense roar, bringing with it a blue flame. Although the effect wasn't very obvious, under Lin Xian's continuous attacks, anyone with a discerning eye could see that the Hell's Descent was starting to cave in a little at the spot he attacked. In other words, his attack was effective. Don't forget, he was only attacking by himself. The powerful might of the flame of the heart was showing. The instant Lin Xian's 18th bursting fireball ended, a huge skull made of blue flames flew out of the fire crystal staff, becoming the 19th wave of attack. With just that one moment of buffering, Lin Xian's back was already glowing with a pair of blue flames in the shape of a dragon. Legendary grade equipment, Fire Dragon Wings, 100% increase in mana gathering, 100% increase in movement speed, and Fire Dragon protection. At this moment, what Lin Xian needed was obviously not protection, but to increase his mana gathering speed. The Fire Curse spell was just a continuous process. He spread his Fire Dragon Wings, and the fireballs appeared again. Another 18 consecutive fireballs appeared. From the start of his attack to the end of the 36th fireball, the entire process took less than a minute. At this moment, Lin Xian had completely exceeded his usual performance. Even a Grade 8 magician might not be able to achieve this kind of attack power and attack speed. Moreover, he was using the Grade 8 Flame of the Heart. All the bursting fireballs landed on the same spot. At the same time as the 36th fireball ended, a resonant phoenix cry resounded from Lin Xian's body, and the huge blue phoenix soared into the sky, bringing with it a dazzling blue flame as it pounced on that devil head. The violent explosion caused the dark spiritual energy on the devil's head to fluctuate violently. At this moment, Lin Xian's attack finally ended. The most beautiful magic wasn't necessarily the most effective, and Lin Xian's method of attacking a fixed target was clearly the most powerful he could achieve. When the blue flame phoenix spiritual cauldron launched its attack, he had already tossed several pills into his mouth. Don't forget, he was also a potioneering apothecary. In terms of endurance and explosive power, he was almost invincible among mages of the same rank. Naturally, Lin Xian wasn't the only one attacking. In the face of a life-and-death crisis, all the mages on the city wall used their strongest magic. They all attacked from the side, and those with strong control even circled their magic to the back of Hell's Descent to avoid accidentally injuring Long Houchen's group of 3. Some of the bolder and stronger mages also flew to Long Houchen's side like Lin Xian, and unleashed their magic attacks at close range. The infernal demon god Marbus stared dumbfoundedly at this scene from afar. His fierce eyes were filled with disbelief. The moment the Prayer of Light appeared, he realized that he had lost contact with Hell's Descent. Even with his cultivation, it was still difficult to control this super forbidden spell that was comparable to a full blow from the Demon Emperor. He didn't expect the magic temple to have the ability to temporarily seal this super forbidden spell. He also knew that this seal wouldn't last for long. However, the mages of the magic temple reacted extremely quickly, and had already begun to attack the forbidden spell with all their might. With this kind of consumption, it was hard to say how much attack power Hell's Descent would have when the seal ended. As the 5th demon god of the demons, one of the 5 demon god pillars, Marbus naturally had his own decisions. He pointed his right hand in the direction of Jialing Pass, and said in a low, powerful voice, "Attack." Although Hell's demons were the backbone of the demon army outside Jialing Pass, they were by no means the entire force. Following Marbus's order, the demon army suddenly launched a full-scale attack on Jialing Pass like a tide. The power of Hell's Descent was resisted, but all the mages of Jialing Pass were also pinned down. At the same time, Long Houchen couldn't hold on any longer. Although the Prayer of Light's main purpose was to use the power of God to seal, it also required a huge amount of spiritual power as support. Long Houchen used the Sun-Moon Divine Snail shield to enhance his Prayer of Light, but his own spiritual power consumption rate was also extremely terrifying. At this time, the colorful golden light that bloomed from his body was obviously unstable and could collapse at any time. Kai Er's hands that were holding the Grim Reaper scythe unconsciously clenched. Once Long Houchen's Prayer of Light ended, then they would bear the brunt and become the target of this forbidden spell. Kai knew that she had to buy time for Long Houchen. Only then would it be possible for him to take her and Lin Xian through the Tower of Eternity and teleport away. At this critical moment, 6 balls of light suddenly flew out from the direction of Jialing Pass without warning. Each of these 6 balls of light had a diameter of about 10 meters. After quickly descending, the 6 colors of red, blue, green, yellow, gold, and black shone at the same time, intertwining into a gorgeous hexagram in the air, just in time to trap Hell's Descent within it. The 6-colored light shield then rose, enveloping this greatly weakened super forbidden spell. As the golden light faded, Long Houchen grunted and ended the Prayer of Light. The Star King used his own spiritual power to help him stabilize his body so that he wouldn't fall. Without the seal of the Prayer of Light, the Hell's Descent forbidden spell immediately rushed left and right in the 6-colored light shield, causing the light shield to emit bursts of violent tremors. At this time, the situation in the 6 balls of light could be seen clearly. Each of the balls of light had 6 magicians. There were a total of 36 people. Each of the 6 balls of light was led by a magician, and this powerful seal was cast by them together. If it was the Hell's Descent forbidden spell in its peak state, they might not be able to seal it, but after a series of consumption, this seal that was laid by 6 level 9 magic gods and 30 level 8 sacred magicians could temporarily withstand the Hell's Descent forbidden spell. The Magic Temple's Magician Legion finally arrived at this time and completed their magic, taking over Long Houchen's position. At the same time, a huge green light soared into the sky from within Jialing Pass. It first rose high into the sky, then slowly descended. Long Houchen, who was in a weakened state, was greatly shocked when he saw the green figure that was over 100 meters tall. That green figure looked like a human, but it actually looked like an enlarged version of the Magic Temple's master, the Wind Elemental Envoy Li Jingji. However, at this time, Li Jingji's plump body was filled with endless majesty. He wore green armor and held a huge war blade in both hands. Green light lingered around his body, and gusts of wind constantly attacked his body. Every time the wind attacked, the green light on his body would grow a little stronger. In fact, Li Jingji had already arrived when Long Houchen launched his attack. Even with his cultivation, the Super Hell's Descent forbidden spell was still very troublesome to deal with. He needed time to rush over, and it was obviously impossible for him to display his strongest ability in a hurry. Just as he was about to rush over, Long Houchen suddenly appeared on the battlefield and sealed the Hell's Descent forbidden spell. Although this was not enough to turn the situation around, it was tantamount to giving Li Jingji timely help as it bought him enough time. Seeing that Long Houchen was about to be unable to hold on, Li Jingji and the mages, who were already prepared, attacked at the same time. The huge green figure floated down and arrived in front of the 6th elemental seal. The long blade in his hand moved in the air, and suddenly, an emerald green light directly slashed at the horrifying black mass of the Hell's Descent forbidden spell. A strange scene appeared. The moment the blade slashed out, all the wind in the sky disappeared. In the next instant, a thin piece of the Hell's Descent forbidden spell was cut off. It was a piece of spiritual power that was as black as ink. What was even more strange was that this piece of black Hell's Descent was covered with a layer of emerald green light. The wind god's long blade that Li Jingji had transformed into shook, and the black light flew towards the demons in the distance. It landed in the vanguard camp of the demon army. The first thing that erupted was a strong wind. The hurricane scattered in all directions with a terrifying cutting force, followed by the power of the Hell's Descent. It could be clearly seen that under the thin black cover, the ground within a radius of 1,000 meters sunk by 10 meters at the same time. As long as the demons were within this range, even if they were also of the dark attribute, they would be instantly melted into nothingness. Li Jingji's action had just begun. He stretched out the long blade in his hand and slashed fiercely at the Hell's Descent. He then threw the spiritual power of the Hell's Descent at the demon army. After just a few slashes, the charging momentum of the demon army was completely suppressed. Giving them a taste of their own medicine, this was what a true powerhouse was like. Seeing this scene, Long Houchen couldn't help but feel dazzled. He couldn't see how Li Jingji did it at all. As a mage, he was now like a god descending to the world, and all he used were martial arts. This ability could no longer be simply described as powerful. Almost as soon as he appeared, he immediately reversed the situation and turned defeat into victory. He even used the super forbidden spell, Hell's Descent, as his weapon. As expected of the Wind Elemental Ambassador, known as the strongest powerhouse of the 6 major temples. There were more than 36 mages in the Magic Temple's team of mages. Dozens of mages landed on the city wall one after another, reorganizing the mages, reorganizing and recovering their spiritual power, ready to continue fighting at any time. At this time, the surprise attack of the demons had been completely resolved. Li Jingji's series of attacks had killed at least 10,000 demons. The demon god of hell, Marbus, finally couldn't help but take action. Although he had consumed a lot of energy previously, he couldn't just watch his subordinates be slaughtered by Li Jingji. In a flash, the 8 demon gods all flew into the air, using their respective powers to resist the spiritual power of the Hell's Descent thrown out by Li Jingji. In an instant, the spiritual power in the sky surged, and various colors of light flew everywhere. The wind god transformed by Li Jingji seemed to be able to fight against 8 demons alone. And he wasn't at a disadvantage at all. Although this was related to the weakened state of the 8 demon gods, the ability of the wind elemental ambassador to be able to do this showed how powerful he was. At this moment, Long Haochen and the rest had already returned to the Jiaoling Pass. As they recovered their spiritual power, Long Haochen's gaze never left Li Jingji. It was extremely helpful for him to be able to witness a battle between powerhouses of such a high level. Using his powerful mental strength to sense the spiritual power in the air, Long Haochen gradually understood Li Jingji's battle style. It was definitely a spell, and Li Jingji was at the core of the spell. Long Haochen was a god blessed himself, so he could sense that Li Jingji's spell had truly borrowed the power of the wind god. However, Long Haochen borrowed the power of the goddess of light because of his identity as a god blessed, while Li Jingji borrowed the power of the wind god because of his powerful abilities and his affinity with the wind element. Conservatively, Long Haochen estimated that Li Jingji's internal spiritual power was at least 300,000. Furthermore, he should have at least one relic with him. The battle did not last for too long. The demon gods were all selfish. Sensing Li Jingji's power, Marbus did not want to fight him to the death. When the 8 demon gods charged out to block Li Jingji's attack, they had already given the order to retreat. The demons' morale plummeted as they advanced and retreated. Meanwhile, the power of the super forbidden spell, Descending Hell, gradually weakened under Li Jingji's continuous weakening. The power of breaking the seal became weaker and weaker. Finally, as the 6-colored seal pressed inward, the Descending Hell forbidden spell disappeared with a poof. It also announced the end of the battle. Li Jingji did not continue to chase after the demons who had retreated. Instead, he held his blade in front of him and looked at the 8 demon gods who were retreating slowly. He looked like he was about to attack the sky with his blade. At this moment, the Jiaoling Pass had become a sea of joy. Although the battle today was dangerous, the final outcome could be said to be perfect. There were no casualties on the side of the Jiaoling Pass, but the enemy suffered a heavy blow. At least for the time being, they did not dare to attack again. When the Descending Hell forbidden spell was destroyed, Long Haochen left the top of the city wall with his partners silently and went down the city wall. He had already done what he had to do. There was no point in staying any longer. Moreover, he did not want to see Tan Wan and Xianyuan Yin again. Regardless of whether they felt guilty, embarrassed or continued treating him coldly, he was not willing to face them. When Long Haochen left, the wind god in the sky turned his head slightly and glanced in the direction he had left. A faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. 3 days later. Xian, please come with us. I'm begging you, okay? How can I let you stay here? Lin Xian was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, circling around Lin Xian's room. Lin Xian looked at him in amusement and said, "You! This bad habit of indecisiveness can never be changed in this life." Although she said so, her eyes were full of tenderness. "We are all demon hunters. You have your team, and I also have my own team. How can I give up on my teammates? Moreover, my strength can no longer keep up with you and Haochen. If I go, I will only become your hindrance. I have already discussed with Lu Shi. Before the end of this holy war, we will all stay in the Jiaoling Pass. It is safe enough here. You are a man, a member of the handsome monster hunt 64. We still have time in the future. Can you stay for me? We are demon hunters, and from the day we become demon hunters, our lives no longer belong to us. Don't you understand?" Lin Xian was silent. He had been persuading Lin Xian for almost an hour. After the battle 3 days ago, the situation in the Jiaoling Pass was even more stable. It was almost impossible for the demons to break through this impregnable pass. Moreover, with the relationship between the Magic Temple and the Knights Templars, Long Houchen decided to continue south to meet up with the others after discussing with his companions. Under such circumstances, Lin Xian was naturally in a difficult position. His relationship with Lin Xian was getting better day by day. How could he bear to part with her? Although he knew that what Lin Xian said was right, he could not accept it in his heart. Lin Xian stood up and walked in front of Lin Xian. She leaned into his arms and hugged his waist. Silly, I should be the one who should be worried. Because your strength is getting stronger, the mission you have to complete will definitely be more difficult. Promise me, live well. Haven't you always wanted to? Today I will give it to you. I hope you can have more worries and pay more attention to protect yourself. No matter how long it takes, I will wait for you. Hearing Lin Xian's words, Lin Xian could not help but tremble. If it was in the past, he would definitely be excited. But at this moment of separation, how could he be happy? No, Xian, I want to marry you legally. I can't let you be wronged, especially at this time. Especially at a time like this, how could I? I love you, Xian. I really can't bear to leave you. Lin Xian hugged Lin Xian tightly, feeling the elasticity and warmth of her body. He could not help but burst into tears. In the 64th Commander Grade Demon Hunt Squad, he was the one with the most fragile emotions. Lin Xian suddenly broke free from Lin Xian's arms and said fiercely, "What do you mean you can't let me be wronged? I should be the one who can't let you be wronged. Do you think I can't just because you say so? You are a magician, and I am a knight. Use your magic to stop me if you can." Under Lin Xian's dumbfounded gaze, his body was already pulled towards the bed by Lin Xian. This was a battle between a 6th-grade knight and a 7th-grade magician. In such a close distance, in a small dormitory, one could imagine who would win. Chapter 196. While Lin Xian was being forced by Lin Xian to fight, Long Houchen welcomed two guests. "Hello, Holy Knight Captain." When Long Houchen opened the door, the guests outside had already bowed to him respectfully. It was Tan Wan and Xianyuan Yen. Tan Wan's expression was normal, but Xianyuan Yen seemed a little awkward. He lowered his head slightly, unwilling to look at Long Houchen. Long Houchen looked at them in surprise. "You two are." Tan Wan was no longer as arrogant and cold as before. She smiled and said, "Can you let us in to talk? Please." Long Houchen stepped aside and invited the two into the room. At this time, he was still wearing the golden foundation armor. In order to hide his identity, he did not easily take off the armor even when he was training alone in the room. Fortunately, the golden foundation armor was very comfortable on him, and he did not feel uncomfortable. "Holy Knight Captain, we are here to apologize to you. What happened that day was my fault. At the same time, I thank you for your help in Jiaoling Pass. I am sorry." As she spoke, Tan Wan bowed respectfully to Long Houchen. This was no longer an etiquette that belonged to mages. It was a big etiquette between peers. Xianyuan Yen similarly bowed at the side, but his actions seemed to be slightly more forceful. After the battle that day, Long Houchen was once again summoned by the Magic Temple's master, Li Jingji. No one knew what they talked about, but not long after, the Magic Temple made an announcement, announcing the heroic deeds of the acting Holy Knight Captain Jing Jin 12 of the Knights Templars. They also said that the Magic Temple would forever remember this deep friendship. Long Houchen smiled and said, "You two don't have to do this. You did not do anything wrong. I only hope that the relationship between the Magic Temple and the Knights Templars can be improved in the near future. When that time comes, I will need the support of both of you." Tan Wan didn't respond to his words. Instead, she changed the topic. "Holy Knight, I heard that you're leaving, right?" Long Houchen nodded. "Jiaoling Pass is impregnable. I'll go to the other temple to have a look. I'll be leaving tomorrow morning." After a moment of silence, Tan Wan suddenly said, "Chief Holy Knight, I have a presumptuous request. Long Houchen was taken aback. Please go ahead. Tan Wan said, I wish to challenge you, one-on-one. He didn't use any weapons or equipment and relied on his own abilities. I know that my cultivation is far from being comparable to yours, but I really want to know how big the gap between us is. At this point, she seemed to be afraid that Long Houchen would misunderstand. She continued, Ever since I became a magician, I've been doing my best to cultivate, with Master as my goal. I hope to become a strong person like Master in the future, to fight for the Alliance, to fight for humanity, and to completely eliminate the demons. I just hope that you can become another goal for me to pursue. I'm just asking for your guidance, nothing else. Long Houchen thought for a moment and said, All right. In that case, please find a secluded place, Commander Tan. Also, don't let there be any spectators. Okay. Tan Wan seemed to understand Long Houchen's concerns and readily agreed. Xian Yuan Yen wanted to say something, but in the end, he held back. Long Houchen didn't inform Han Yu and Kai. He followed Tan Wan and Xian Yuan Yen to a wide door on the 4th floor of the magic temple. Tan Wan said to Xian Yuan Yen, Wait for me here. Xian Yuan Yen suddenly looked at Long Houchen with a pleading look. Long Houchen said apologetically, Commander Xian Yuan, you will understand my difficulties in the future. Commander Tan, please. Tan Wan pushed the door open and entered with Long Houchen. This was a wide training field. It was circular and had no spectators' platform. It was about 50 meters in diameter. For a magician's attack range, this place wasn't very large. This is the place where the temple conducts the test. With Xian Yuan standing guard outside, no one will disturb us. As she spoke, Tan Wan flicked her wrist, and the staff in her hand disappeared into thin air. Immediately afterward, she pulled open the front of her robe and took off the mage robe that was emitting intense magical waves. She stored it in her storage ring, revealing a green dress underneath. Today, she proposed this challenge to Long Houchen because she wanted to see how big the gap was between her and Long Houchen. That day, when Long Houchen used the Prayer of Light to stop the descent of hell, the shock was too strong for her. With her eyesight, she could naturally see that Long Houchen had used a divine weapon at that time. In Tan Wan's heart, she still couldn't accept it. If he didn't use epic equipment like the divine weapon and the adamantine foundation armor, how much stronger could he be? She really wanted to know the answer. Long Houchen and the others were about to leave. Tan Wan couldn't hold back her curiosity any longer and went to look for Long Houchen. She first expressed her regret because she didn't want it to affect her mentality in this challenge. Long Houchen said, Leader Tan, after this competition, whether I win or lose, I have a request. I hope to get your help. Tan Wan was stunned. What request? Long Houchen smiled slightly. Let's talk about it after the competition is over. Okay. Tan Wan said as she walked straight to the side of the trial field. Both of them didn't wear any equipment, but relatively speaking, the knight was at a disadvantage compared to the magician. This was because the knight not only had equipment, but also had a mount. In a situation where they didn't use any equipment, their cultivation would be greatly weakened. On the other hand, the magician didn't use equipment, so the effect was much simpler. However, Tan Wan obviously didn't want to take advantage of Long Houchen, so she chose this trial field with a diameter of only 50 meters, which was disadvantageous to the magician. Under such circumstances, the weakening of both sides was proportionately more or less the same. Golden light flowed, and the golden foundation armor on Long Houchen's body retreated like a ripple. He didn't release any of his heavy swords and just faced it head-on. At the same time, he retreated to the opposite side of the trial field from Tan Wan. Looking at Long Houchen's young and handsome appearance, Tan Wan couldn't help but be a little absent-minded. Handsome men didn't have much of an impact on her. In terms of feelings, she didn't think too much about it. Her goal was to improve her cultivation. So, she was only shocked by Long Houchen's age. Even though this was the second time she saw it, the shock didn't diminish in the slightest. "Holy Knight, I'm going to start," Tan Wan said in a low voice. "Please." A pair of green spiritual wings appeared on Tan Wan's back almost instantly. Then, she pointed at Long Houchen with her right hand, and dozens of green wind blades shot towards Long Houchen like flying knives. Each of these wind blades had their own path, some in a straight line, some in an arc, and some even circled around from the side. They almost blocked all of Long Houchen's escape routes. Long Houchen put his hands behind his back and took a step forward with his left foot. Then, his body suddenly swayed in a strange rhythm. Puff, 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 puff. A series of spiritual power collided. In the dazzling green light, Long Houchen just walked out with his hands behind his back. That's right, he walked out. From the beginning to the end, he didn't release any spiritual power or launch a counterattack. As the attacker, Tan Wan felt it the clearest. Long Houchen used a strange footwork that seemed slow but was actually fast. He was always able to avoid the wind blades by a hair's breadth, and he was always able to cause two wind blades to collide with each other and dissolve themselves. This process seemed simple, but whether it was his control of his body, his judgment, or his speed, they all made Tan Wan gasp in amazement. This was the first time she knew that someone could actually use this method to avoid her wind blade. Of course, as the direct disciple of the wind elementalist, her attack had only just begun. At the same time that Long Houchen walked out of the wind blades, Tan Wan kept chanting incantations, and balls of green light shot out from her fingertip. The green light turned into small tornadoes that were only about a foot tall and flew towards Long Houchen. There were a total of 12 small tornadoes, filling the entire training field with a series of strange whooshing sounds. They flew towards Long Houchen at different speeds, and the dense wind elemental essence in the air became more and more violent. A one-on-one battle between a mage and a knight could not be won with the most powerful spell, but with the most suitable spell. The 12 tornadoes that Tan Wan cast looked the same, but their actual power was completely different. Each small tornado was equivalent to a level 6 spell. After unleashing the 12 tornadoes, her pretty face turned pale. After all, this was without the help of any magical equipment, and with her mid-level 7 cultivation, it was already the best she could do. Among these tornadoes, some were in a straight line, some were in reverse, and some were chaotic. Every one of them was different. Moreover, once one of them exploded, the other tornadoes would be instantly attracted, and would descend on the enemy almost at the same time. In terms of a single spell, these 12 small tornadoes could form a compound spell, and if its power was fully unleashed, it would be comparable to the power of a level 8 group spell. Long Houchen's advance came to a halt, and the 12 tornadoes swept towards him from different directions. He raised his right hand, and a white light spread out from his palm, turning into a heavy sword about 4 feet long. Then, Long Houchen actually closed his eyes. He took a step forward with his left foot, and the heavy sword in his hand that was completely condensed from spiritual energy slowly slashed out. Condensing spiritual energy into energy? No, Long Houchen's cultivation had not reached that level yet, and he was still unable to release the Ling Gang in this way. Therefore, what he was actually holding in his hand was actually a skill, the Holy Sword. The power of the Holy Sword released with a hand as the hilt would obviously be greatly limited, but under the blessing of Long Houchen's pure light element, it looked not much different from a real light heavy sword. His slash looked light, and his movement was not fast, but it still hit the first tornado that flew towards him. However, Tan Wan, who was in the distance, had a hint of smugness on her face. No matter how strong you are, as long as you trigger one of my tornadoes, then my tornado formation will be instantly activated. I'd like to see how you can resist my level 8 spell without any defensive equipment. However, the smugness on Tan Wan's face only lasted for a moment, and in the next moment, it turned into astonishment. Long Houchen's sword cut into the tornado, but he didn't cause it to explode. It seemed that the tornado, which was filled with tyrannical cutting power, had become an extension of his arm, and was directly lifted by his arm. Long Houchen's aura also disappeared. At this moment, he had actually completely integrated into the surrounding wind element, so that the other 11 tornadoes only revolved around his body, but did not attack him. His right arm trembled slightly, and Long Houchen's body made a shaking motion. Immediately after, the tornado at the front of his arm turned into spots of green light and dissipated into the air. The holy sword was still there. When the first tornado disappeared, the other 11 immediately sensed it, and all attacked Long Houchen in the center. It was also at this moment that Long Houchen's body, which had been moving slowly, suddenly sped up. At the critical moment, the holy sword in his hand stabbed out 11 times. The 11 tornadoes stopped in midair almost at the same time, and in the next moment, they all turned into spots of green light and disappeared. With a flash, Long Houchen crossed a distance of tens of meters with a single step, and arrived in front of Tan Wan. Tan Wan almost instinctively raised her arms and punched at Long Houchen. Her hands were surrounded by green light, and the speed of her punches was actually quite fast. It was actually a martial technique. With regards to her attack, Long Houchen was not surprised at all. However, he did not block it, and only allowed Tan Wan's fists to strike his chest. Bang bang! 2 muffled sounds rang out, but Long Houchen did not move. Tan Wan only felt that when the wind-type spiritual power in her hands bombarded Long Houchen's body, it was immediately dissolved by a strange vibration. It could not penetrate his body at all. Long Houchen did not release any counterforce. He just stood there, his hands hanging by his side, and stared at her with a burning gaze. Lowering her hands, Tan Wan looked at Long Houchen in a daze. "I lost." These 3 words came out of her mouth with difficulty, but she had to admit that she had lost. She could clearly feel that Long Houchen's cultivation was much, much higher than hers. Not only in terms of spiritual power, but also in terms of combat experience, comprehension, and the use of skills. They were not on the same level. Long Houchen took 2 steps back, increasing the distance between him and Tan Wan. "The magic you used just now was very strong. If I hadn't specially studied the frequency of vibrations in the air, it would have been very difficult to resist." Tan Wan smiled bitterly. "You don't need to comfort me. A loss is a loss. This is the gap between me and you. However, I have 2 questions. First, how did you break my tornado array? Second, you seem to know that I know martial technique. However, this secret is only known by Master. Even Lin Xian does not know. Could it be that Master told you? That is impossible,"